Chapter 1582. No one knew when or where this rumor started, but one day this rumor started to spread across the continent. According to the rumor, Jade Fantasy didn't only have one continent. On the other side of the ocean, there was another continent inhabited by humans. On that continent there were also chosen ones. However, for some reason, the chosen ones on the main continent were unable to contact the chosen ones on the other continent. Only when the upper echelons of the main continent had explored to a certain extent would a path connecting the two continents appear. There was another rumor. According to the rumor, the chosen ones that were born on the other side of the ocean came from another world. The Kelowna battle group was ranked third among the top 10 battle groups in the Human Alliance. It was also one of the main battle groups in the frontline exploration. At the same time, there were many powerful people in this battle group. In addition, the Kelowna battle group also had a very professional commander. It was rumored that before he was born, he was a top student in the military academy in the real world. This is too much. It's fine if those two always go missing, but why is the Kelowna battle group following them too? At the front line, in the headquarters of the Human Alliance, in the military conference room, the battle groups that participated in the frontline exploration were all seated. However, there were still 2 empty seats. One of them was the Kelowna battle group's seat. I've asked. The Kelowna battle group seems to have something to do today. They won't be participating in today's exploration and won't want the rewards from today's exploration. A battle group leader stood up and said, "What's so important?" A battle group leader frowned and said, "The hidden room that we found yesterday might be the boss of this floor. We agreed yesterday that we would be doing the first exploration today. Isn't the Kelowna battle group breaking the agreement yesterday? They are only stopping for a day. It's not something important. Moreover, the entire Exploration Alliance has been fighting for days. They should have some time to rest. Since those two and the Kelowna battle group are absent today, I suggest we postpone today's exploration and let our brothers rest for a day. Those who agree, raise your hand." After a while, the majority agreed. According to the principle of the minority obeying the majority, today's battle conference was thus cancelled. All the commanders and officers began to leave one after another. But in the end, there were still 3 army commanders who did not leave. They came from different countries of the Human Alliance. After the Human Alliance defeated the Demon King Roger's Demon King City, the Holy Kingdom was born. However, not long after the establishment of the Holy Kingdom, the Human Alliance had established more than 10 different regimes of different sizes, which were scattered all over the continent. Some of these nations were obtained by conquering the territories of monsters, some were created by obtaining the inheritance of the native nations' monarchs, and some were even more direct, appearing by conquering the native nations. What do you guys think? One of the 3 remaining soldiers, Erwin, the commander of the Hero Legion from the Super United Nations, suddenly knocked on the table. It's normal for the Azure Sky Sword Sage and the Azure Sky Saintess to be absent. It's not the first time, so there's nothing strange about it. However, the Kelowna Legion. This is the first time they're absent. This person was also from the Super United Nations, but he was not in the same battle group as Erwin. Instead, he was the commander of the Polar Blade Troop. He frowned and said, "Let's put it this way. The Divine Land Battle Group not only shows up on time every time, but they also complete their missions very seriously. This time they might be able to open the path to the upper level. It's really strange for them to be absent at this time." "Butcher, just say what you want to say. Don't beat around the bush." The last person, King Bahubali, the commander of the Titan Legion from God Nation, said expressionlessly, "I know you've been paying attention to the Kelowna Legion's movements. Shouldn't you know more than us?" The butcher sneered when he heard that. Erwin could only knock on the table again and said in a low voice, "Remember, the 3 of us have an agreement. Ollie." Butcher thought for a while and said, "I don't know what the Kelowna Legion wants to do, but I know where they're going today, to the Endless Forest Ocean. Endless Forest Ocean? A Bahubali king. The name was too long, so he decided to call him Bahubali for the time being. Haven't we finished exploring the forest sea? Why are the people of the Divine Prefecture going back? Butcher shook his head and said, I don't know. This is all I know. The Kelowna Legion is fully armed, and they went to the Endless Forest Ocean early in the morning. Irwin didn't say anything. He was thinking about the information contained in this piece of information. Beho suddenly raised his eyebrows and said, Could it be that the Kelowna Legion found something in the Endless Forest Ocean? Could it be a hidden checkpoint or a mysterious place? Are they planning to take it for themselves? Butcher and Irwin looked at each other. In fact, they had thought of this possibility as well. Naturally, they had thought of this possibility because they had more or less done something similar before. The exploration of the upper levels of the continent was too time-consuming, and in order to save time, they would split up from the start to explore a new unknown area, and would only gather again when they were about to complete the exploration of a layer. Although according to the rules of the League of Mercenaries, the legions had to report how much they had explored and how much they had obtained, it was unknown how many legions would follow this rule. Exploring an unknown area was both risky and risky. It was normal for the legions to hide some mysterious items or high-grade items when they discovered them. This was a tacit understanding between the legions. However, the Kelowna Legion was different. The other legions had never discovered this behavior of the Kelowna Legion. Or perhaps they just hadn't discovered it. The Kelowna Legion had done a good job of keeping it a secret. Have they finally revealed their true colors? Baho sneered. I've never liked this group of lofty fellows. Why do they always act like leaders? Baho, before we have concrete evidence. Irwin knocked on the table again, but this time, he used a bit more strength. However, Captain Bawo simply stood up and sneered. Since it's a rest day today, I don't need your permission to do anything. I'm bored and intend to take a stroll in the endless sea of trees. Butcher and Irwin looked at each other again. At this moment, Butcher suddenly frowned. What's going on? Irwin was keenly aware of something. Butcher said with a strange expression, according to the latest information, Azure Sky Sword Saint and Azure Sky Saintess have also gone to the Endless Forest. Looks like. Irwin stood up slowly and said indifferently, It's really necessary to go for an excursion. Let's hope that the Endless Tree Sea can give us some surprises. Everyone, divide into 20 teams of 5. At the same time, activate the no-consent mode. Remember, keep it between, your man doesn't want you anymore. When you're in a team with this number, deal the final blow to the monster and gain the most experience points. In the depths of the Endless Forest, in a monster's nest, the commander of Kelowna Battle Group, King Snake, said loudly, Don't waste a second. Don't take turns with 5 teams. Rest for 20 minutes each time. Okay, use your fastest speed to kill the monsters in this nest until they can't keep up with the respawn rate. King Snake was the first member of the administration to enter Jade Fantasy by accident. He wasn't an agent of the administration, but a supporter in charge of logistics. However, because he was the first to enter, the administration didn't have anyone else to enter the game for a long time. Therefore, King Snake cooperated with the administration outside the game. In other words, the administration outside the game found 200 to 300 people to play the game with King Snake. This pushed King Snake to the top of the Human League. Now, a King Snake was the third most powerful person in the Human League. However, he still couldn't catch up with Azure Sky Sword Saint and Azure Sky Saintess. At this moment, under King Snake's command, 5 teams of Kelowna Battle Group members rushed into the monster's nest. Only the sound of wind, thunder, and explosions could be heard coming from the entrance of the monster's nest. At this moment, your man doesn't want you anymore. Who was the main character of this experience point gain, your man doesn't want you anymore. Shinryu of Kelowna Battle Group put his legs on the table and smoked happily while looking at the experience points that skyrocketed. I heard that the current level cap is level 100? Shinryu of Kelowna Battle Group felt that the cigarette wasn't enough, so he changed to a big one. He narrowed his eyes and said, "At this speed, I can reach level 50 in one day. TSK, that old man is really stingy. He doesn't want to let me fight for one more day. However, level 50 should be enough for now. I'll come again another day." This Kelowna Shinryu of Kelowna Battle Group had already started to laugh coldly. When her fire spell, "Your man doesn't want you," reached the top of the continent and arrived in front of the final boss of this patch, the Black Dragon King, what kind of expression would that be *TCH have on her face? It would probably be like eating a dead rat. Thinking about this, Kelowna Shinryu of Kelowna Battle Group couldn't help but smile. "Sister Dragon, can you come out for a while?" "What's the matter? I'm feeling so good right now. I don't have time. Sister Bird Demon from the next street seems to be having a difficult birth. Come and take a look. I can't handle it." The little butterfly demon was about to cry. "Wait. I'll come right away." Shinryu of Kelowna Battle Group threw the big cigarette to the side and typed 2 words on the screen. Then, he rushed out of the room. AFK. Froggy frowned. At this moment, it was time for his team and "Your man doesn't want you" team up. He had just started to team up and was preparing to deal the final blow to the small boss monster. However, when he saw the other party type out the word hack machine, Froggy's heart suddenly felt bad. "Regiment Commander, this guy is AFK." Froggy silently sent a private message to King Snake. "Isn't this too much?" King Snake directly replied, "Don't worry about it. Our mission is to use the fastest time to upgrade this account. If it wants to AFK, then let it AFK." "This account, who is controlling it?" Froggy asked again in his heart. King Snake replied, "I don't know. This is an order from above. Don't ask and don't need to know. We just need to obey the order. Froggy, remember your current identity. You're my member. You have to listen to my orders. Keep up the speed and don't be distracted. Remember your current identity. You have to listen to my orders." Froggy's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. He stared coldly at the 2 words, King Snake, on the communication interface, and sneered. Obviously, it was just a handyman pouring tea and water at the beginning. It was just that the guy who came in first took advantage. If there weren't the efforts of 200 or 300 people behind him, the 3rd strongest person in the Human League? It's just a joke. You guys continue to farm here. Froggy took a deep breath at this time. "I'll go inside and see if I can lure the king monster out of the nest. The king monster has more experience, and it may drop something good." The rest of the team did not doubt Froggy's words at this time. After nodding, they opened a path for Froggy to go deeper. "Thank you." Froggy chuckled at this time and jumped into the depths of the nest. Endless sea of trees, deep in the forest. Qian Xiu turned back and asked, "Benefactor, what level are you now?" Level 15. "It's quite fast." Boss Luo casually looked at the interface and replied. Similar questions and answers had happened 4 times along the way. In fact, in the team state, both Qian Xiu and Thousand Delicate Feathers could see the level of Little Mage at any time, but the 2 of them still asked directly. "And the progress is okay?" Qian Xiu nodded. "Let's try to help you level up to level 55 today." Boss Luo didn't have much concept of this level up. In the past, he had played some mobile games. The first dozens of levels could be achieved quickly. "Husband, the experience of these elite monsters is still too little. It's a bit difficult to level 55 in a day." Thousand Delicate Feathers suddenly said. She had been keeping an eye on the experience supply. "Indeed." Qian Xiu nodded. "Then let's go to the king's nest. On average, we will farm one every 15 minutes. If it goes well, we should be able to complete it in half a day." "Alright." Thousand Delicate Feathers agreed without hesitation. Chapter 1583. It was like making a deal with the devil. All the chosen ones who were born in the Jade Fantasy world knew this very well. You won't be like normal players. You'll just lose a level and come back again. There's a limit to the number of times a chosen one can die. Once this limit is exceeded, the chosen one will truly die. Usually, they would die 3 times, unless they had an item that could cancel out the death. But as far as Froggy knew, the king snake did not have such an item. This item had always been circulating on the continent, and it would appear in the upper regions of the continent that had not been explored yet. That was why the Human Alliance was so keen on exploring the upper regions. Even the king snake was so. As one of the many helpers who had supported the king snake to reach the top in the game before he chose the yes option in front of the computer screen, Froggy and all the other members of the administration who were involved in the game investigation were very clear about the death count of the king snake. The king snake had no more deaths. The next time he died, he would truly die. The Wu King snake would directly die in the real world, and he would completely disappear in the Jade Fantasy. Therefore, even though he hid it well, Froggy knew that the king snake was very afraid now, extremely afraid. That was why he spared no effort to participate in the exploration of the upper area. Now, the level cap has not been opened yet. Other than the newly born chosen ones, the old people are basically of the same level. The difference is just the difference in skill completion and equipment. In the depths of the lair, Froggy hid in a crack of a rock, looking around like a poisonous snake. He was actually of the same profession as the king snake. In other words, if there were any accidents after joining the king snake, he could very likely inherit all of the king snake's skills. Of course, Froggy was not the only one with the same profession. The administration believed in the principle of not putting all eggs in the same basket. Therefore, every profession had at least 3 people practicing it. Therefore, even if King Snake unfortunately used up his last death count, Froggy still had other competitors. But at least, I have to let the opportunity appear. He silently stared at the depths of the lair. Then, his body gradually underwent some strange changes. His face began to change, and at the same time, his body began to expand. Until Froggy completely turned into a skinny man. Item: Shadow Imitation. Function: Impersonate another character for 1 hour. At the same time, you will be able to use all the skills of that character, except for all hidden classes. Finally, Froggy's body completed its transformation. After that, Froggy took out a crystal. A human face appeared in the crystal ball. Froggy slowly said, "It's me. The opportunity has come." On the way, Luochio suddenly asked, "Do you like the life here?" Qian Xiu and Thousand Delicate Feathers were both stunned. Thousand Delicate Feathers nodded directly without even thinking about it. "How can I not like it?" Qian Xiu was slower, but he said, "Here many things can be done that couldn't be done in the past." "Do you like this world?" Luochio asked again. They nodded almost simultaneously. Boss Luo said, "As long as you like it." Thousand Delicate Feathers felt a little strange about Little Mage, a sudden question, but Qian Xiu did not. When he met Little Mage, he started with some random questions. Monsters were killed, and they never stopped being killed. Qian Xiu, as the most powerful sword master in the Human League, was indeed a well-deserved powerhouse in this real game world. Boss Luo didn't even have to specifically check the information of Qian Xiu and Thousand Delicate Feathers. Just thinking about the amount of money that Thousand Delicate Feathers spent in the game, he could roughly guess the distance between them and the general Chosen One players. Although the recharge channel was closed later, there were some people who entered with money in the beginning. Well, the world was originally so unfair. But there were still many opportunities in Jade Fantasy that could allow the Chosen One who was born with nothing to reach the top. It depended on luck and personal effort. The ecological environment here was no different from the real world. When a section of the dragon vein in Kelowna was connected to Jade Fantasy, it was not far from being complete. At the beginning, the appearance of Jade Fantasy was only because Taeyinzi casually said it to deal with Boss Luo's question. It was like a joke. Now it had evolved to this extent. Taeyinzi probably didn't expect it at first. Luocho himself couldn't tell why he wanted to evolve this Jade Fantasy world to its current state. In fact, what he did seemed to be similar to the entire Aurea system. After sowing the seeds of civilization, he let it develop freely. The only difference was that the Aurea system used the appearance of all humans. You could find the same existence in many subworlds. There was only one Jade Fantasy at present. Everyone who was born here belonged to the only one for the time being. The next step was probably to let the natives in Jade Fantasy, the various creatures in the background of the game itself, start to have souls. Starting from the fake soul, then the real soul was born from the fake soul. Then it was a complete reincarnation system of the real soul. In this way, the entire Jade Fantasy world could almost complete an ecological closed loop. It's a bit like an experimental field. Luocho suddenly thought. It's my own personal experimental field. Boss Luo couldn't help but think of Professor Siejiatu, who had worked silently in the Sun City for more than 600 years. Boss Luo found that what he was doing now was actually similar to Professor Siejiatu. Taeyinzi said casually. In the Jade Fantasy world, the Lord God plan was to create a hero spirit, a high-quality soul. In fact, this step had already been achieved. Then, if he went further, benefactor, what level are you now? Qian Xiu's words interrupted Luocho's contemplation. Boss Luo smiled slightly and said, I have reached level 26. My speed has improved a lot. My level has increased, but my leveling speed has not slowed down. It has even improved. Thank you. You're welcome. Qian Xiu smiled heartily and ran in the forest. Although the sword in his hand was stained with the monster's blood, he really smiled happily from the bottom of his heart. Running. Free, unrestrained running on the earth. Before he was born, he could not walk, and he could not even take care of himself. She was the same. She always looked at the figure running among the many monsters and no longer locked herself in the dark room. They were here. Not only that, but they were even blessed. It's beautiful. Boss Luo muttered to himself. It seemed that he had not seen such a colorful soul light for a while. Jade Fantasy would give birth to more such brilliant soul light. They would become seeds, leading the natives who gradually had emotions to try to embrace the brilliance of the soul. Luocho smiled slightly and planned to leave. He did not come for the so-called leveling up. It was just a matter of a word if he wanted to level up. The Lord God project naturally had a backstage. These were things that could be modified by the backstage. This was the convenience of authority. He just remembered that there was such a little mage in the game before he went to bed. He remembered that in the novice village, Xiao Hu, who received the Golden Carp King mission, there was a frustrated man who was drunk and did not dare to accept love. So, he planned to come up and take a look. He also wanted to experience the game world designed by Miss Maid. So, there was no need to stay any longer. He had already seen the scenery, and Qian Xiu had also seen it. The light that he liked had begun to grow on them. Boss Luo felt that he would probably have a good quality of sleep after he went back. Then you two can continue to live here easily and happily until a little mage was about to fade away. Boom! But a sudden loud noise made Boss Luo stop leaving. The loud noise made the birds living in the trees of the endless sea of trees fly out in horror. They were all over the sky like dark clouds. Xiu, what happened? 1,000 delicate feathers frowned. Qian Xiu looked ahead and saw a red light suddenly appearing in the sky of the endless sea of trees. The whole sky was dark red. He thought for a while and said, "It seems that a story master has appeared." Story master? Thousand Delicate Feathers was puzzled. Didn't the floor master of the Endless Forest Sea have already been defeated by the Divine Land Battle Group? Logically speaking, it will take at least 20 days before it will respawn. It's not the original story master, Qian Xiu said with a solemn expression at this time. It's a newly promoted story master. A monster has evolved into a story master here. At this time, with the dark red light in the sky getting stronger and stronger, the entire endless sea of trees suddenly shook. The trees shook. Those ancient trees all seemed to come alive. Thousand Delicate Feathers suddenly smiled. I thought that there were not enough monsters. Now these are good. Story Master Xiu, we can probably complete the mission ahead of time. Qian Xiu chuckled, but he handed the sword in his hand to his left hand. Then, his right hand directly summoned a dark long sword. Dual-wielding swords, one black and one white. Yes, I haven't killed a story master for a while. I hope the reward is not too bad. Boss Luo looked at Qian Xiu's appearance at this time and blinked subconsciously. Dual sword style. The déjà vu of these two is so strong. What the hell happened? King Snake looked at the entrance of the monster's lair that was quickly covered by tree roots. The big tree where the lair was located in front of him grew wildly at this time. The sky was dark red and the earth was shaking. Under the red light, everyone in the Kelowna battle group only felt a cold wind coming straight up from the soles of their feet. Story Master. It's a Story Master. A monster is promoted here and has become a new Story Master. Endless Tree Demon. Danger level. Black. Black. It's more dangerous than the Story Master we fought last time. It's a whole level higher. A member of the battle group couldn't help but exclaim at this time. Hearing that, King Snake's pupils shrank instantly, and his heart couldn't help but jump. No one was willing to face the Story Master of this frontline exploration area unprepared. When encountering a Story Master, one couldn't leave the battle, let alone use any teleportation items. There were only two results when encountering a Story Master: kill the Story Master, or be killed by the Story Master. Commander? There is no other way. It seems that the new Story Master has not fully evolved yet. Organize an attack as soon as possible. We must destroy the new Story Master before it fully evolves. King Snake quickly calmed down. As the first person in the agency to fall into Jade Fantasy, his experience in the game world was much more than the rest of the agency members. He also accepted the fact that after 3 deaths, it would completely disappear. Commander, that your man doesn't want you. It's still in the nest. It's still AFK. What should we do? King Snake was slightly angry. It doesn't matter, it's just a drop in level if it dies, but some of our companions here, if it dies. Everyone, if you're still in the nest, get out of the nest immediately. Those whose skills are still on cooldown, get back, and those whose skills are up, get rid of this new Story Master as much as you want. Okay. Everyone's morale was high. But in the end, King Snake didn't have a trace of confidence in defeating this new Story Master. After all, this Endless Tree Demon was 1 level higher than the one they fought last time. At this time, under King Snake's command, a few small teams quickly left the nest and then hurriedly formed new teams. The members of the battle groups who had long-range attack skills had already started the first wave of probing attack. In the chaos, no one noticed that there was one less person in the battle group at this time. This was because everyone was suppressed by the unprecedented pressure brought by the Endless Tree Demon, and they almost couldn't breathe. In the distance, on an ancient tree in the Sea of Trees, with Super United Nations, a Polar Blade, and a Kingdom of God-S battle groups all saw this scene through long-range vision. Kingdom of God-S Commander Bajo's face was as ugly as if he had swallowed a dead mouse. Damn it! The battle range actually covered us. These guys from Kelowna's battle group are actually here to fight the new Story Master? What a joke. I'm afraid they can't handle it. Erwin calmly analyzed, Moreover, the appearance of the new story master should be beyond their original expectations. Looking at their current attacks, although they can still maintain their formation, they're obviously a bit flustered. It's obvious that they're not prepared for this. Butcher, what do you think? If Kelowna's battle group is wiped out, the new story master probably won't let us go. Damn it. Before Irwin could say anything, Baho cursed, I didn't come here for free labor. Even so, if the three battle groups just stood by and watched, the worst result would be that their strength would be scattered, and they wouldn't be able to successfully fight the new story master. Instead, they would be defeated one by one, and in the end, they would all be wiped out. Contact King Snake. Butcher finally said calmly, tell him that we're nearby. ######PS. Recommended the book Monsters Will Die When Killed, Searing Steel Soul by the author's new book. Eagles. Chapter 1584. What? Butcher and the others are also nearby? They said that they can help, but the profits from the floor lords must be divided equally. King Snake frowned, but the situation was urgent, and he couldn't think carefully about the gains and losses. The entire extended battle group had fallen into the battle circle of the new floor lord, and the crisis was imminent. They didn't even have time to wait for the results of the discussion of the big shots in the administration outside the game. They didn't know how cruel the battles in this game world were. King Snake knew that he could only rely on himself in this kind of situation. If the Kelowna battle group was wiped out here, his efforts would be in vain, and he would have to hand it over to others. Agree to their conditions. King Snake gave a response after a few seconds. Soon, Butcher, Irwin, and Baho led their men through the forest and appeared in front of the Kelowna battle group. Since Butcher didn't bring the members of the entire battle group, but all of them added together, they could probably match up to a complete battle group. Looking at the three people who came without changing their expressions, King Snake had seen these three faces too many times on the conference table during the battle meeting. How is the King Snake now? Irwin asked directly at this time. They were all adults. Since the conditions had been agreed upon, there was no need to fight over personal feelings. As for whether or not they could be so harmonious in the future, that was a matter for the future. After they had safely escaped this calamity, that was a matter for the future. Very bad. King Snake shook his head. My men still can't break the new floor lord's light of evolution, and from the looks of it, it's about to complete its evolution. The danger factor is one level higher than the previous forest floor lord. Its attributes are wood and dark. You guys really know how to cause trouble. It's fine if you don't come to the battle conference, but you even created such a dangerous thing. Baho snorted. They wouldn't fight over personal feelings. After all, not everyone would. King Snake looked deeply at Baho and then ignored him. The situation is like this for now. I need to know who you've brought. Butcher replied in a low voice. Don't worry, they are all experts. They won't be a burden. However, all the expenses will be reimbursed by your Kelowna battle group. This was clearly raising the price. King Snake was filled with hatred in his heart, but he could not show it. He could only nod and say, sure. You just have to submit a complete record of the use of resources to me after this. Their discussion didn't last long. But in this short period of time, the light of evolution of the new floor lord, Endless Treant, suddenly dimmed. It was not that the new floor lord's evolution had failed, but that its evolution had been completed. He's so fast. King Snake was shocked. The Endless Tree Demon, which had completed its evolution, was over 1,000 feet tall, and its canopy covered the entire dark red sky. Its branches danced wildly in the air like countless tentacles. These branches and tentacles were extremely hard. If they whipped a person's body, ordinary armor would probably shatter directly. A warrior from the Divine Prefecture battle group was directly hit by a branch in front of everyone's eyes. Then, his body turned into a ray of white light, and he died and returned to the Divine Prefecture. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. I'm starting to regret my offer. Erwin took a deep breath. Then, he waved his hand and called out to the members of his regiment. Prepare to build the assault fortress. Field mechanics, use the fastest time to complete the iron war puppet. Butcher and Baho hurriedly ordered the members of their respective regiments. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. King Snake glanced at the endless tree demon that had completed its evolution, and the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. The battle circle only prohibited him from leaving, but it didn't prohibit him from communicating with the outside world. He was constantly discussing this matter with the outside world. The real outside world, the superior of the administration in the real world, all the time. King Snake, you can't die now. You don't have any more deaths. In the regiment, you must protect your companions who don't have any more deaths like you. If necessary, you can sacrifice your companions who still have more deaths. If you fail, you can make up for your losses. So, try your best to come out alive. If necessary. King Snake murmured softly. His eyes gradually became determined. Then, King Snake raised his arm and shouted, Kelowna Regiment brave and fearless! Kelowna Regiment brave and fearless! The earth-shattering roars came from the people on the ground. King Snake casually threw out a precious scroll that could stimulate everyone's fighting spirit. Then, he pulled out the sword at his waist, summoned his mount, and charged toward Endless Tree Demon. The biggest taboo of an army was to be afraid before the battle. He couldn't be afraid. If he was afraid, he would only think of escaping. Exposing his back to the enemy was tantamount to exposing his weakness to the enemy. He couldn't be afraid. If he was afraid of death, more people would die. Seeing that King Snake was charging, Butcher and the other two stopped and frowned. Does anyone know how many deaths King Snake has left? Butcher suddenly asked. Erwin and Baho shook their heads. The number of deaths was the biggest secret of a chosen one. They had spent a lot of money trying to pry open the mouths of the members of Kelowna Regiment, but they didn't succeed. They didn't say it out loud, but they had to admit that they admired this point. Butcher shook his head. Suddenly, he felt a bit bored. He pulled out his bow and began to release the skills of an archer. Butcher was an archer class. Don't panic. Maintain the formation. Pay attention to the cooldown time of the skills. Top 3 teams retreat. You guys are charging too far ahead. Analyst, have you found the weakness of the floor master? Analyst! Analyst! The battle circle was like a bustling market that was shouting early in the morning. At the same time, a thin figure quietly walked out from the entrance of the monster's nest. He hid under a huge tree root and looked up at the people who were attacking the new floor master. He seemed to be looking for something. At this moment, not far in front of him, a glowing magic array suddenly appeared on the mud covered with withered leaves. His gaze was already hidden behind the huge tree root. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes. Subsequently, in the magic array, 3 figures gradually emerged and finally appeared. Why are they here? When he saw the people who appeared in the magic array, the thin figure couldn't help but be shocked. His expression became strange unconsciously. Your transfer magic is getting more and more proficient. The accuracy is good this time. Qian Xiu smiled and rubbed Thousand Feathers Delicate's head. This made Thousand Feathers Delicate squint her eyes in enjoyment. But when she remembered that there was a benefactor next to her, she couldn't show off too much affection. She stuck out her tongue awkwardly. What a naughty girl. This transfer magic is one of the secret skills that you obtained, but she hasn't been able to use it well before. Qian Xiu looked at Boss Luo at this time and said with a smile, the range of movement is limited. It can only be teleported to a place that can be seen. The position is not easy to grasp every time. Once, we were teleported directly into the magma. I didn't expect that there would be no problem this time. It seems that luck is on our side. Thousand Delicate Feathers naturally puffed up her cheek. Qianxiu reached out and pinched her face without thinking about it. 1,000 delicate feathers bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Boss Luo liked this kind of random teleportation. Random also meant the unknown and unexpected. He could feel more and more the charm of unexpected things. The so-called surprise. Okay, stop fooling around. Qianxiu patted 1,000 Feathers Delicate's head. Look at the information of this new floor master. Use your God Construct Eye to see if you can find its weakness. 1,000 Delicate Feathers snorted softly, but she still activated the so-called God Construct Eye immediately after hearing his words. Qianxiu looked at Boss Luo and said, Benefactor, we may not be able to protect you in the battle later. You have to be careful. Just hide. Let's kill this new floor master as soon as possible. It sounds very easy. Boss Luo nodded, but his eyes glanced at the position of a huge tree root intentionally or unintentionally. Who's there? Qianxiu keenly caught something. Benefactor's gaze. This was just a kind of sixth sense perception. Qianxiu only felt that something seemed to be hidden there, so his figure flashed. Several simple but very practical skills were launched at the same time. The black long sword in Qianxiu's hand stabbed hundreds of times at this time, directly smashing this section of tree root into pieces. A figure could be seen flying out from behind the tree root. When Qianxiu was about to pursue, the figure flashed directly and fled into the entrance of the monster's lair awkwardly. It disappeared in a blink of an eye. Who is it? 1,000 Feathers Delicate stopped at this time and looked at him nervously. Qianxiu looked at his black long sword doubtfully, shook his head and said, I don't know, but it should be a stab, but it didn't break the defense. The opponent's defense looks pretty good, and he used the stealth skill. He should be an assassin player. Is he a member of those battle groups? 1,000 Feathers Delicate thought for a while. On the way here, they had already seen the players of Kelowna Battle Group and several other battle groups fighting against the new floor master. Qianxiu muttered, If it's a member of a few battle groups, he shouldn't have escaped when he saw us. The sudden evolution of Endless Tree Demon is quite strange. Things don't seem to be so simple. Perhaps this matter is related to the upper-class aristocrats. Upper-class aristocrats, then? 1,000 Feathers Delicate asked directly, should we chase or fight? Chase was to ask if they should chase the mysterious guy who escaped. Fight was to ask if they should fight the floor master now. Qianxiu thought for a while and said, The attack range of Endless Tree Demon is too large. It is dangerous for our benefactor to stay alone. How about this, you go to help the people of Kelowna Battle Group and deal with Endless Tree Demon first. I will take our benefactor to chase the guy who escaped. Okay. 1,000 Feathers Delicate, who had absolute confidence in her husband, nodded without thinking. How could she not be confident? She had given him the best. The strongest person in the human league, Azure Sky Sword Sage, had always been two people. 1,000 Feathers Delicate quickly rode on the Pegasus and rose into the air. Qianxiu looked at Luoqiu and said apologetically, Sorry, benefactor, I'm still a little worried about you staying here alone. But you can rest assured that I will protect you. Later, remember to follow me. Don't go far. Qianxiu had rich experience in leading people. He mainly trained from Xiao Bao. Compared with Xiao Bao, who was lively and active, this benefactor was much more sensible. He didn't run around, and he didn't talk much. He was quiet as a side character. He was simply too well behaved. Could it be that a girl is playing this character? As everyone knew, it was very easy and common for boys to play female characters and girls to play male characters in the game world. Don't worry, Boss Luo said casually. I'm still quite good at following people. Qianxiu nodded and didn't think too much. Then, he opened his personal space and took out some equipment. You should be able to wear these equipment at your current level. They are all common for the mage profession. The defense effect is good. Wear it just in case. Boss Luo did not refuse. There was an advantage to playing a game character. It was a change of equipment. The equipment was obviously in good condition, but it was not ostentatious. It was quite in line with Luocchio's usual dressing habits. It was just that Boss Luo was never used to unilaterally accept gifts from others, but he thought that the strongest Azure Sky Sword Sage in the League of Legends did not lack anything. So, he thought about it and opened his palm. I picked this up on the road. I don't think it's useful, so I'll give it to you. You're welcome. Qian Xiu shook his head with a smile. With the huge amount of money from 1,000 delicate feathers in the early stage, the couple would lead the progress of the entire Chosen One system step by step. Their reserves were far from what outsiders imagined. He just glanced at the things given by benefactor. Fresh fragrant pear. After eating, continue to restore magic power within 20 minutes. The effect is very good. The effect is very good. It even specifically states that the effect is very good. The props in the game seem to be getting stranger and stranger. Qian Xiu shook his head with a smile. Since it was just a simple recovery prop, he accepted it casually. Probably in the eyes of this benefactor, this was a very good prop. By the way, what did you say just now? Who are the upper-class aristocrats? Qian Xiu said as he walked. They are the guys who live in the upper unknown area of the mainland. They claim to be upper-class aristocrats and ostracize us. It's probably the plot in the game, but there is still little information. At present, we don't know what the upper-class aristocrats intend to do. We only found their traces after entering this large area, and we have fought with these upper-class aristocrats several times. Are they also players? I don't think so. Qian Xiu shook his head. They are not players, but they have professions like us and can use skills. But their upgrade needs to be through cultivation, which is a little different from us. Luocchio muttered to himself. He remembered that in Miss Maid's design, there was no such thing as upper-class aristocrats. They were born in the upper unexplored area and were hostile to the Chosen One. Is it the result of the world's self-evolution after the implantation of the dragon vein? Boss Luo couldn't help but think. There's someone here. Qian Xiu's voice suddenly came. Luocchio looked in the direction of the voice and saw a figure standing still in the monster's lair. It looked like a mage, and it was a female mage. Not only that, but there were more than a dozen monsters slowly approaching the female mage, but she still lowered her head as if she didn't notice them. Your man doesn't want you anymore? Qian Xiu couldn't help but open his mouth at this time. What kind of name is that? Chapter 1585. Basically, Qian Xiu had seen all kinds of weird names, but he really didn't know where to start complaining about the name of the fire wizard in front of him. However, he didn't pay too much attention to it. This fire mage who didn't move was probably not a chosen one, but a normal player. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be so indifferent in the face of such danger. This was clearly the appearance of an AFK player. As for why Qian Xiu could recognize it at a glance, it was because he was too familiar with it. Xiaobao was like this. Xiaobao, who played games in the office, was often like this. He walked away, but his account was still here. It was commonly known in the gaming world as his own good teammate. This wizard probably walked away and is hacking. Qian Xiu looked at Luocchio and said directly. He always thought that little wizard was the same as Xiaobao, a player in the real world. Otherwise, it was impossible to go offline. Boss Luo blinked. When he looked at this fire wizard, he had a strange feeling in his heart. He resisted the urge to be omniscient and omnipotent. He thought for a while and said, "Is it okay to leave it here like this? If the monster kills it, its level will drop." Qian Xiu said casually, "Starting from the second layer of the continent, the death penalty has been increasing. This is already the third layer. Endless Tree Sea. If you are killed by monsters here, your level will drop by 1 to 3 levels randomly. The equipment on your body may also drop." I see. Boss Luo nodded. Based on the strange feeling in his heart, he made a move. He didn't even think too much. It was just a subconscious action. He raised his hand and casually released a skill. The skill that could beat up Lord God Taiyinzi naturally would not be released. That skill was released in combination with another skill of Miss Maid's account. It was an ability that could directly destroy the world. If Boss Luo was not crazy, he would not destroy the Emerald Continent that had been developed to the present. However, Boss Luo probably underestimated Miss Maid's meticulousness and perfectionism. A bolt of lightning suddenly shot out from Boss Luo's palm. It was just a bolt of lightning, but the purplish-blue lightning was quite beautiful. It turns out to be thunder method. Qian Xiu glanced at it casually and didn't care too much. But in the next few seconds, his casualness turned into surprise, then into consternation, and then panic. Chain of stars, lightning storm. A blue-purple electric arc slowly shot out at this moment, but after shooting less than a meter out of the body, it increased at an exaggerated speed that made people's scalps numb. In just 2 to 3 seconds, the large cave was filled with dense and terrifying lightning bolt. The lightning bolts easily pierced through the elite monsters in the nest, almost killing them in one hit. Therefore, in just 2 to 3 seconds, the monsters in the monster nest, who were hunting this weirdly named fire method, had already fallen. Because he was in a team with Little Mage, Qian Xiu subconsciously glanced at his kill record. Seeing that all the good experience points were credited to Little Mage's account, Qian Xiu felt that these monsters that were killed were really high-level monsters in the endless sea of trees, not the chickens and rabbits outside the novice village. I have seen this skill. Qian Xiu took a deep breath at this time. Chain of stars, lightning storm. Benefactor, how did you learn this skill? Boss Luo said, Oh? It seems to be unlocked when I was promoted to level 10. It looks quite ordinary. Is there any problem? Well, the movement was a little big and I didn't notice it. It may affect your tracking of the person who escaped just now. It seems to be the first skill unlocked when I was promoted to level 10. It looks quite ordinary. It looks quite ordinary. This is clearly the ultimate skill released by the last gatekeeper boss on the second floor of the mainland in a berserk state. At that time, the last floor master of the second major floor cast a chain of stars. More than half of the chosen ones, in the entire Exploration Legion, were killed or injured. Although Qian Xiu and Thousand Delicate Feathers had always been ahead of the rest of the chosen ones, that battle was quite difficult. They exposed several tricks before killing the last floor master. Qian Xiu had now entered the third major floor, and his strength had skyrocketed. It would not be so difficult to fight the previous floor master again, but the feeling of powerlessness at that time still left a deep impression on him. And this is the first skill unlocked at level 10. Level 10? Level 10. Benefactor, your level base is probably 10 times, 100 times more than others? Well, what happened? At this moment, a low female voice suddenly sounded. It came from the female fire mage who was motionless surrounded by monsters. She slowly raised her head, then looked at Qian Xiu and Boss Luo with a puzzled expression. This game is really getting weirder and weirder, Qian Xiu thought. Qian Xiu recalled when he first met Xiao Bao. At that time, Xiao Bao was already the chosen one in the game. He remembered that the real players at that time had stiff movements and expressionless eyes. Even when they spoke, the bubble text appeared above their head. But now, even the players in the real world outside could speak human language, and their movements were vivid. Everything looked the same as a real person, except for one thing. Basically, all the female characters' voices were the same, and the male characters' voices were the same. This was how the chosen one could immediately distinguish whether the opposite was the same kind or not. Wait. Qian Xiu, who thought of this, was suddenly startled. He looked at Luoqiu with a surprised and indescribable gaze. The voice of the little mage was not the voice of the world's universal male character. His voice was very pleasant. What's the matter? Luoqiu asked casually. No, nothing. Qian Xiu smiled and said, I just think that benefactor's skill is very practical. Well, it's quite practical. Boss Luo smiled slightly. He thought that since it was designed by Miss Maid, it probably couldn't be symmetrical with the flashy but impractical one. Obviously, Miss Maid occasionally liked gorgeous things, but at the same time, it was also super practical. At the same time, your man doesn't want you, who suddenly woke up. She was walking slowly toward everyone. Well, these two guys are also members of the battle group? Why are they standing still? Long Shirua still had a cigarette stuck to her lips, and her hands were on the keyboard. The problem of Demon Bird's dystocia had been solved. Kelowna's vacuo had quite a lot of experience in this regard because she often delivered babies. Kelowna's Shinryu, who was delighted with her account, rushed back to the room from the operating room. But as soon as she sat down, she saw that only she and two unfamiliar accounts were left on the screen. The guy who looked like a swordsman actually had his name blocked. Long Shirua could only see a series of question marks. As for the sorcerer next to him, Little Mage? What are the guys in Kelowna's battle group doing? Why did my experience stop for so long? Long Shirua pulled up the system message and found that the people in the team actually kicked her out directly. Then, no one added her to the team for a long time. With a series of clicks and clicks, the keyboard flew. Kelowna's Shinryu typed a line of words, then clicked on the Little Mage directly and clicked on the option to apply for a team. What are you guys doing here? Didn't we agree that you will bring me to level up today? Why did you stop? Do you know how to bring others? Do you have any quality of service? The world's unified female voice sounded at this time. Qian Xiu frowned. He was a very approachable person, but now he was the strongest person in the Human League, Azure Sky Sword Sage. He was not arrogant, but the mentality of a strong person was constantly changing. Despite this, he still said calmly, You got the wrong person. You were AFK just now and you were almost bitten to death by the monster. If it weren't for my companion's kindness to save you, you would probably have returned to the resurrection point now. The female fire sorcerer was silent for a moment, then said again, Did you see a group of guys? Kelowna's battle group? Are you a member of Kelowna's battle group? Qian Xiu was startled. He had no conflict with Kelowna's battle group. It could even be said that among the many battle groups, he had the highest favorability toward Kelowna's battle group. In addition, he had a good relationship with King Snake, the commander of Kelowna's battle group. The reason was that he and King Snake were actually from the same hometown. Well, they were from the same hometown in the real world. Due to the name King Snake, Qian Xiu's attitude naturally eased a little. He thought that if the people of Kelowna's battle group brought this female fire sorcerer to level up, your man doesn't want you anymore. She should have a special relationship with Kelowna's battle group. They are, sort of. Your man doesn't want you anymore. Qian Xiu nodded casually. Oh, you are not from Kelowna's battle group. I got the wrong person just now. I can't match. I'm sorry. Long Shirua found a strange thing. When she faced the screen, she could easily type out words such as me sorry, oh sorry, and so on. As the Shinryu of Kelowna, the number of times she had to apologize to others seemed to be few in the past 2,000 years. She knew that this was entirely because of her temperament, but she was powerless to change anything at the same time. Probably it was because the other party didn't know who she was across the screen, and she didn't know who the other party was. So, everyone had no burden and didn't have to care about the relationship. She could better show her true self. If she made a mistake, she would apologize. If she did something wrong, she would take the initiative to bear it. She was straightforward. She didn't say anything nice and didn't please people. She just wanted the person opposite her to have a good chat with her and be relaxed as usual. But this had always seemed to be a rather distant dream. Long Shirua suddenly discovered the charm of this game. She didn't know that all the games in the world were the same. They all had the same nature and could make people obsessed. This guy saved me. Little mage. The Shinryu of Kelowna smiled. If she were to tell others that she was saved by someone, and that the person was very powerful and was a mage in the game, everyone in Kelowna and Taoist kingdoms would probably drop their jaws to the ground. The true dragon of the divine land laughed out loud. She was amused by her sudden thought. She had not felt so relaxed for a long time. Thank you. She typed to a little mage, let's add each other as friends. I haven't added many friends yet. Let's level up together when we're free. I'll take you. She was like an ordinary person playing the game. She would talk to people normally. She would talk to people she liked normally. She would argue with people she didn't like normally. Normal, normal, normal. She would be an ordinary person. She could say such things because little mage's level was lower than hers. It wasn't easy for Kelowna Shinryu. Since she entered the game, all the characters she met were of a higher level than her. It was really difficult to meet someone with a lower level than her. Those in the newbie village didn't count because this Shinryu of Kelowna's goal was to reach the top of the continent. She wanted to stand in front of the final boss of that patch and make her biggest rival in love, that little bitch, look bad. However, little mage has rejected your friend request. The true dragon of godly land suddenly widened her eyes as if she had been greatly wronged. This feeling was familiar to her, and at this moment she couldn't think straight. This was the first time she had the courage to act like an ordinary person and try to make friends, even if it was just in the game. Go to hell. Crackling sounds could be heard as the keyboard flew. Kelowna Shinryu was still the Kelowna Shinryu. When she was unhappy, she couldn't care so much. She scolded me just like that? Qian Xiu frowned instantly. It was no problem to scold him. There were many people scolding him in the entire human league. Even if he was the strongest person now, there were still many people who disliked him and were jealous of him behind his back. Qian Xiu didn't care about this. As a professional player before becoming a chosen one, he had long adapted to such an ecological environment in the game circle. But it was no problem to scold him, but scolding his benefactor was intolerable. Even if this female mage really had a special relationship with King Snake. In the Jade Fantasy continent, he, Qian Xiu, Azure Sky Sword Sage, was the strongest person in the human league. At this moment, a cold arrow was shot from the dark. The target was actually Qian Xiu's eyebrows. The sense of crisis made Qian Xiu's pores open. Qian Xiu snorted coldly. The black long sword in his hand swept across and directly cut off the cold arrow that was shot from the dark. He looked at the broken arrow and then at the dark place where the arrow flew out. He saw a figure flickering in and out of existence like a ghost. Upper aristocrat? At the same time, Qian Xiu also saw a message from the system. You were attacked by a mysterious upper-class aristocrat. You successfully defended against the sneak attack of a mysterious upper-class aristocrat. #######PS1. Hand over a steel wire ball to the capitalist boss, Chen Zui. Thank you with tears. PS2. So, 5 of 82. Chapter 1586. Facing the prompt of the system information, Qian Xiu's expression suddenly became solemn. He had mentioned the upper-class aristocrats to his benefactor, but he did not explain in detail how hostile these upper-class aristocrats were to the chosen ones from the lower regions of the mainland. The upper-class aristocrats began to appear after the Frontline Exploration Legion was promoted to the large area where the Endless Tree Sea was located. In the beginning, the chosen ones only regarded these upper-class natives, who could use skills like players, as relatively special people in the world's plot. The so-called world's plot was like the Human League's crusade against the Demon King City. At the beginning, before the Evil Dragon era, the mainland was in the Dark era. People in the lowest region of the mainland would be attacked by demonized creatures. On the way to defeat the Demon King City, the chosen ones would encounter many powerful NPC natives. They would not only provide the chosen ones with considerable rewards, but they might also become the chosen ones' masters and perform some special profession transformations for the chosen ones. For example, Qian Xiu obtained the inheritance of the previous Azure Sky Sword Saint. Therefore, when the upper-class aristocrats first appeared, the chosen ones would treat them as characters in the New World's plot. At the beginning of contact, the people of the Exploration Legion were quite friendly to the upper-class aristocrat. At the same time, these upper-class aristocrats respected the chosen ones as much as the natives in the lowest region of the mainland. Until one day, chosen ones died in the hands of the upper-class aristocrats. The chosen ones learned a terrible thing. These upper-class aristocrats could actually improve their strength by killing the chosen ones. In other words, all the monsters in the Jade Fantasy mainland were the source of the chosen ones' strength. The chosen ones were the source of experience for these upper-class aristocrats. It was also the relationship between prey and predator, natural enemy. Whenever the upper-class aristocrats were encountered, they must be eliminated without any consideration. Because the upper-class aristocrats were inevitably related to the survival of the entire chosen ones. If the chosen ones were just ordinary players, they would naturally not be afraid when facing the upper-class aristocrats. However, the chosen ones would die if they were killed. The chosen one was reborn in this game world and had a wonderful life that was completely different from the real world. No one was willing to simply bury such a fate. Therefore, the hostile relationship had been established since the upper nobles revealed their evolutionary conditions, and there was no possibility of reconciliation. Benefactor, you stay here. I'll be right back. Qian Xiu took a deep breath. Facing the appearance of the upper-class aristocrats, Qian Xiu was no different from the rest of the chosen ones. After all, the life here was like a treasure to him. I will explain to you when I come back. With that said, Qian Xiu stepped out and rushed out. But at the moment of rushing out, Qian Xiu also summoned a white light at the same time. The white light fell on Luoqiu's side. When the white light dissipated, a 5-meter-tall white-haired ape with a huge black club in its hand appeared. The complete body of the berserk white emperor ape. Its power was comparable to the elite king monster below the floor master of the endless forest sea. It was the most powerful monster type below the floor master in this large area. Now, the new floor master was still fighting fiercely with the 3 major battle groups and 1,000 delicate feathers outside. The sudden evolution of a new floor master was already very incredible. The possibility of a second floor master here was less than 1%. Therefore, it was more than enough for him to summon the White Emperor Ape to protect his benefactor. Of course, even with the White Emperor Ape, Qian Xiu would not leave easily. The reason why he left like this was that he found that his benefactor was probably a more powerful profession than his Azure Sky Sword Saint. What kind of mage profession could awaken the ultimate skill of a large area floor master when they were only at level 10, even if this floor master was only in the lowest large area? But Boss Luo's Thunderbolt directly eliminated more than a dozen powerful elite monsters in this nest. Qian Xiu also saw it with his own eyes. Oh, okay. Boss Luo nodded at this time. Qian Xiu had already rushed into the cave with complicated paths. In addition to Boss Luo, there were only the battle pet White Emperor Ape left by Qian Xiu, and the fire mage Your Man Doesn't Want You Anymore, who didn't know what was going on. And, do you want to eat something? Boss Luo flipped his hand at this time and took out a fragrant pear, the same fragrant pear as the one given to Qian Xiu. You're sick. Unexpectedly, Your Man Doesn't Want You Anymore. At this time, he directly said, I'm going to help the people in the Kelowna battle group. I don't have time for you. This time, the fire mage did not submit a friend request again. He didn't even intend to mention this matter. After snorting softly, he found a direction and left. Boss Luo glanced at the only remaining white emperor ape, blinked, and sent out the fragrant pear again. He smiled and said, "Do you want to eat?" Roar. The white emperor ape scratched its head, then nodded. It half squatted and took the fragrant pear from Boss Luo's hand. The white emperor ape didn't have so many thoughts. There were only two very simple thoughts in its mind. This pear is good stuff. I don't know why I can't afford to offend this guy who gave me the pear. Seeing that the white emperor ape was so well behaved, Boss Luo patted its head casually. Then, he found a relatively smooth stone in the cave and sat down. He waved his hand and called out an interface panel, but it was not the attribute panel that the Chosen One was familiar with, but a communication panel. The object of the communication panel was Eve, who woke up the system for Adam. "Master, what's the matter?" Eve asked in a sweet voice. Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "I want to access information about Upper Aristocrat and their design concepts. Can you check it for me in the server?" "Okay, wait a moment." Eve nodded and went to work. At this time, the white emperor ape, who was standing obediently, took a bite of the fragrant pear in its hand. It smelled the fragrance of this fragrant pear, and it didn't know why its appetite increased. After eating the fragrant pear, the white emperor ape only felt that a powerful force began to emerge from its body. It widened its eyes instantly, then began to beat its chest and roar. It was unbearably hot all over. It even wanted to smash everything around it into pieces. However, its instinct told it that the little wizard, sitting not far away, was very dangerous. At the same time, it also had its master's orders, so it had to endure this manic impulse. "I'm fine." Boss Luo smiled slightly and said, "You go and help your master, or you can clean up some monsters nearby. I think you and your master will be better off." The white emperor ape heard the words, nodded instantly, and followed Qian Xiu's path. Unfortunately, Qian Xiu was not here, otherwise, he would probably be shocked. His battle pet actually listened to someone else's words. At the same time, a figure walked out from another entrance of this well-connected cave while cursing. It was the "Your man doesn't want you anymore," who left not long ago. Looking at the situation, she was lost. Kelowna's Shinryu felt that her face was quite hot at this time. She turned on the air conditioner in the room casually. She must have thought that the room was too hot, so she was sweating. Otherwise, how could she tell this little wizard that she returned to the original place because she was wandering around? She was Kelowna's Shinryu. "I left something here." Kelowna's Shinryu's fingers typed a line of text on the keyboard. Then, she bent down, picked up a small stone, and turned to leave. Because of her pride, Long Shirua was even unwilling to let the people of Kelowna's battle team know that she, the great Kelowna's Shinryu, couldn't even find the way out of a monster's lair. In fact, it was okay for the people of Kelowna's battle team to know. They didn't know her identity. The key was that the people above Kelowna's battle team knew. The old man knew. The old man was actually a big mouth in private. Over the years, he often told others about how he fought all the way from Changbai Mountain to Penglai East. It's just a monster's lair. Isn't it easy to walk out? Isn't the exit here?" Kelowna's Shinryu showed a smile at the corner of her mouth, then walked over quickly. Glimmer. It was still a dim cave, and that little wizard was there. Holy sh*t. The true dragon of the divine land cursed inwardly. F***ck. Is there anything else that was left here? She saw the conversation bubble above the little mage's head, so her expression froze for a few seconds. Then, without saying a word, she picked up another pebble and turned around to leave. This time, it will work. Before leaving, Kelowna's Shinryu even took out her phone and recorded the appearance of the cave. This time, it won't work. Upper nobles, non-original characters. Upper nobles, indigenous people born in the third layer of the Jade Fantasy continent. Upper nobles, by killing the Chosen One, they could obtain the ability of the Chosen One, and it could also be used to increase the ability of the upper nobles. Boss Luo was carefully reading the information about the upper nobles provided by Eve. It wasn't strange that he didn't know about this. Just like in a huge multinational company, a single decision could affect the fate of tens of thousands of employees, so naturally, he wouldn't know the names and situations of every employee in the company. As expected, after the dragon vein was connected, it began to evolve. Boss Luo's previous guess about the emergence of the upper nobles wasn't wrong, and through the information provided by Eve, he quickly sorted out a complete idea of the evolution of the upper nobles. The dragon vein that was intercepted back then originated from the evil dragon in the Kelowna continent. It evolved from the hatred of the Kelowna continent towards the destruction of nature by humans. Although the evil dragon had been purified, the dragon vein's instinct to resist the endless demands of humans still existed. When the dragon vein was integrated into the Jade Fantasy continent, it gave the continent countless upgrades and changes. At the same time, the upper nobles' instinct to resist the demands of humans was also activated. That was why the upper nobles appeared. The upper nobles' food chain was thus born. But even so, under the supervision of Adam or Eve, the upper nobles shouldn't appear so easily. After all, the core of the entire Jade Fantasy continent was still the server in the shop's hands. Since this had happened, there was only one possibility. This place has begun to give birth to its own world consciousness. Boss Luo slowly closed the communication interface with Eve. It wasn't a bad thing that the Jade Fantasy continent began to give birth to its own world consciousness. It even meant that the Jade Fantasy world could truly leave the server one day and become a real, self-evolving real world. An original world that was independent of the entire Araya system and countless subworlds. It might really have such a possibility. At this moment, Boss Luo's eyes flickered and became chaotic, as if thousands of stars were hidden in them. Then, light footsteps were heard. Then, at the entrance behind Boss Luo, the fire mage who didn't seem to have a good temper welcomed again. Your man doesn't want you anymore. Your man doesn't want you anymore. At this moment, her face was clearly filled with despair. The reason why he had such a hopeless expression was purely because the true dragon of Godly Land was typing a line of long exclamation marks on the keyboard at this time. How could an exclamation mark be expressed? The transformation of the world eventually turned the long line of exclamation marks into a dumbfounded expression. Then, it was displayed on the game character's face. Of course, Long Shiruo, as a real player outside the game, couldn't see her character's expression at this moment. But her current mood was obviously the same as "your man doesn't want you anymore." There wasn't much difference in her dumbfounded expression. Rubbish game. Kelowna's Shinryu directly scolded. She actually got lost again. She lost her way in the lair that extended in all directions, and then returned to her original place from another entrance. There seems to be no more pebbles over there. Suddenly, such a bubble popped up on top of little Mage's head. Of course, Kelowna's Shinryu could clearly see. Long Shiruo saw this sentence and felt as if she had swallowed a dead mouse. So angry. If you don't mind, why don't you wait here for my companion to come back? He knows how to get out. Seeing the word bubble popping up on top of a little Mage's head, Kelowna's Shinryu pondered for a moment and finally walked over. Kelowna's Shinryu's skin was still thick. Chapter 1587. A sword light flashed from the darkness. In the next moment, the upper aristocrat archer's left calf was pierced by Qian Xiu's sword light. Because of the imbalance, the attacker fell to the ground instantly. Qian Xiu was close again. He pierced the opponent's shoulder with a sword and kicked the opponent's weapon away at the same time. You'd better not move. The black long sword was against the attacker's throat at this time. Qian Xiu asked in a deep voice. Who are you? Why did you attack me? What is the relationship between you and the endless tree demon outside? The attacker stared at Qian Xiu, then sneered. Azure Sky Sword Saint. If I can kill you here, my life is really worth it. After saying that, the attacker's lips moved slightly. Qian Xiu frowned subconsciously. A sense of danger came head-on. The attacker's body burst into a dazzling light instantly. Qian Xiu's eyes narrowed, then he snorted softly. Boom! The attacker from the upper aristocrat chose to self-destruct at this moment. But before the attacker self-destructed, Qian Xiu had already activated the defense. The power of the opponent's self-destruction failed to break his defense barrier in the end. Ever since the exploration army entered the third layer, it had been a common occurrence for the upper-class nobles to self-destruct. The craziness of the upper-class nobles made the chosen ones rather wary. They were most afraid of encountering such madmen. It was precisely because this group of upper aristocrats attacked the chosen ones at all costs that there was no possibility of communication between the two sides. There seemed to be no other upper aristocrat lurking nearby. After exploring for a while, Qian Xiu directly contacted Thousand Delicate Feathers. What's the situation outside? It's okay. After all, the people of the three battle groups are here. Although they were not well prepared at first, they are enough to support me. Give me 20 minutes, and I can kill this endless tree demon. Okay. I met an upper aristocrat in the nest. I suspect that the evolution of the endless tree demon this time is related to the activities of the upper aristocrats. So I plan to investigate further. Be careful? It's okay. If there is a problem, I will use the couple skill to fly to your side. Alright. Then I'll work harder too. I haven't fought in a long time. Thousand Delicate Feathers really hadn't fought for a long time. The last time was when they were fighting against the Demon King Roger in Demon King City. For the rest of the time, she just stood quietly beside Qian Xiu. Don't go too crazy. After Qian Xiu reminded her dotingly, he contacted his benefactor again. Benefactor, are you okay? They're all good. Okay. I'll probably be back later. There's a situation here. I'll tell you more when I get back. It's okay, you go ahead. After a simple communication, Qian Xiu began to check the things left behind after the death of the upper-class aristocrat. Because the upper-class aristocrat's attacker self-destructed, the corpse no longer existed. But after death, some items were dropped. There were a few pieces of equipment that he didn't need, some gold coins, and a special plate. The system didn't tell him what the plate was for yet. This strange plate seems to hide something. Looking at the system's introduction of this plate, Qian Xiu couldn't help but shake his head. It seems that most games have such a common problem. If the plot point hasn't been violated, even if the game doesn't tell you what it seems to be hiding, what is it hiding? On the other hand, Qian Xiu also intuitively felt that there should be more than one upper-class aristocrat in this monster's lair. If this new floor master incident was carefully planned by the upper-class aristocrat to attack the chosen one, but only one upper-class aristocrat was sent, then this group of upper-class aristocrats was too arrogant. Obviously, they wouldn't. Why are you so hostile to us? Qian Xiu looked at the depths of the lair again. Even through the screen, Kelowna's Shinryu felt a strong sense of embarrassment and anger. She didn't want to be like this. She just didn't know when it became difficult for her to be honest with others. Even now, she was half a step into the ranks of Internet Addict Girl. Oh, Internet Addict Auntie. What about your companion just now? After brewing in embarrassment and anger for a long time, Kelowna's Shinryu finally squeezed out such an opening sentence. He has something to do, so he is busy. You don't have to worry. He should be very powerful here. Oh, is that so? That's good. Kelowna's Shinryu's fingers typed these words on the keyboard weakly. Immediately, she thought of a good way to end this embarrassment. Just hang up. Just hang up directly, or even go offline directly. There won't be so much trouble. Anyway, she can go offline at any time. It's decided so happily. At this time. Your name is quite special. Is there any special meaning? Kelowna's Shinryu, whose buttocks had just left the chair, sat back down unexpectedly. Her 10 slender fingers seemed to be possessed as she typed wildly on the keyboard. Meaning? The meaning of this was as great as the ocean. But why should I tell you? I'm not even close to you, and you even rejected my friend request. You remind me of a friend. Shinryu from Kelowna rolled his eyes and typed a question mark. Text bubbles appeared on the screen. A little mage said, "It's nothing. It's just a feeling, an irrational thing. Sometimes it's accurate, and sometimes it's not. Moreover, you often can't tell when it's accurate and when it's inaccurate." Kelowna's Shinryu began to feel that this little mage was rather interesting. At least, her emotions seemed to have been soothed, and the thought of leaving had faded. She thought for a moment and typed, "You can't grasp the feeling because you're not strong enough. Powerful people have a more intuitive judgment of their own feelings. When they are powerful to a certain extent, not only can they grasp their feelings, they can even use them to seek fortune and avoid disaster." A little mage, you've seen it before? Long Shirua shrugged. She felt that this conversation was not separated by a screen. It was as if someone was standing in front of her face to face. I don't need to see it, because I am it. She gradually relaxed and found the true meaning of this kind of online communication. She could boast to anyone, and she could tell the truth to anyone. But no one knew if it was true or just boasting. It didn't matter if you believed it or not. There were some things that she could say without hesitation. She felt refreshed. So, your feelings have always been accurate? Of course. As a Shinryu from Kelowna, the strong feelings given to her by the land of Kelowna were not fake. Although she was not at the level of being able to predict the future, it was normal for her to seek fortune and avoid disaster. As she thought, Kelowna's Shinryu casually glanced at the calendar on the table. 27th. Suitable. Sacrifice, bathing, broken house taboo, marriage, opening the market purple chi from the west. A little mage suddenly said, "What a coincidence. My feelings have always been accurate." Kelowna's Shinryu's eyes widened. She had seen shameless people before, but she had never seen someone so shameless. She shook her head and stepped on the chair. She hugged her legs and continued to type on the keyboard with a cigarette in her mouth. "Since your feelings are so accurate, why don't you feel what I'm doing right now? Aren't you playing a game?" Kelowna's Shinryu snorted. She squinted her eyes and searched for a long time before she found a disdainful expression. She sent it out without hesitation and typed at the same time, "I'm still playing with your bird. Do you feel it? Through the screen, I'm poking your bird." This is really. Little Mage used emoticons for the first time in addition to words. It was a shocking emoticons. Kelowna's Shinryu felt refreshed. She quickly crossed her fingers. "How is it? Have you grasped this feeling? Imagine if I'm talking to you. I'm a young and beautiful woman with a good figure. My fingers are holding you. Your every jump and movement are all between my fingertip. It's like a slight electric shock. The electric current will start from my fingers and spread to your body, making you feel limp and numb. Do you hear that? You can still hear the sucking sound of my lip." She seemed to be possessed. God knows why she could say something so abnormal. It was just a sudden impulse. It was as if there was something pushing her. It was hard to extricate herself from it. This is probably the power of words. Little Mage sent a bitter smile at the same time. The true dragon of Godly Land felt more and more refreshed. He continued to type on the keyboard crazily. But this time, when he was halfway through, he suddenly woke up. "What am I doing?" Her hands stopped. Kelowna's Shinryu stared blankly at the game interface. She couldn't concentrate. What am I doing? What was this feeling of not being able to stop? It was as if she was in heat and had found an outlet to vent her estrogen. Heavens, she was already blushing uncontrollably. Who are you? Kelowna's Shinryu's eyes widened. Her fingers tapped on the keyboard. She had a hunch. She just said that she was a strong person. That's why her hunch was always accurate. But now Kelowna's Shinryu was regretting her words. Her fingers were trembling. She pressed a few keys and continued to type. Luochio. Hello, Ms. Long. Kelowna's Shinryu's eyes turned black when she saw the word bubble above the little mage. She fell down from the chair. Her toes even hit the corner of the table. The corner of the table was broken, but she was fine. Maybe it was because she had a rough skin. Kelowna's Shinryu didn't have time to care about the table. She quickly crawled to the keyboard and typed frantically. Wait. It's a misunderstanding. It's not what you think. That wasn't me. I went out to do something. It's Pianxian. She's using my account. She's chatting with you. You don't know, she's been learning bad things recently. You know, she's in heat recently. That's why her mind isn't clear. I'm going to beat her up later. At this time, the door of the room suddenly opened, and the little butterfly came in with a plate of watermelon. Her voice was as soft as glutinous rice as she said, Sister Long, Uncle Bird Monster just sent the watermelon to thank you. I'm coming in. Kelowna's Shinryu looked at the screen and saw the little butterfly coming in. The words on the chat box were still there. Sister Long, why are you kneeling on the ground to play the game? The little butterfly tilted her head and showed a puzzled expression. She had already walked to the table. The true dragon of the godly land raised his head and found that his vision was a bit strange. From this angle, this butterfly monster's name of ferocious butterfly was so well deserved. Bah, now was not the time to be absent-minded. Sister Long? Kelowna's Shinryu took a deep breath and said seriously, Pianxian, if one day your sister Long does something bad to you, will you blame me? The little butterfly blinked. But why would Sister Long do something bad to me? That's... Kelowna's Shinryu opened her mouth and then said deeply, for your sister Long's happiness. Well... The little butterfly put her index finger on her lips and thought for a while before saying, but even so, Sister Long won't do something bad to others for her own happiness. Sister Long's heart is very kind. Although she's usually very stubborn, she has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Not to mention that she won't do anything wrong to others for herself. It's better to say that she's willing to let herself suffer in order to help others. Stop talking. Kelowna's Shinryu couldn't stand it anymore. She felt goosebumps all over her body. She tapped the keyboard helplessly and typed, well, actually it's me who said I want to play with your bird. Damn it. So what if I want to play with your bird? Come and ride me if you dare. Do you dare? As though it was more tiring than fighting 300 Hui Yaos, as though it had exhausted all of its courage and physical strength, the true dragon of China turned off the power source of the screen right after he typed out the last sentence. Then, he smashed the computer's mainframe with one hand. Then, Long Shirua picked up the watermelon on the plate and ate it under Luo Dance's perplexed gaze. Sister Long, are you crying? Luo Dance asked hesitantly. The watermelon is so delicious. I can feel the gratitude of the little bird demon to me. Oh my God, I'm so touched. Kelowna's Shinryu's tears were glistening. Don't ask, let me be alone. I'm finished, what did I do? Chapter 1588. But no matter what she did, there were some things that she had to face. The true dragon of godly land was just ashamed but not afraid. Therefore, after eating for a while, she immediately asked the little butterfly monster to restart the computer. It can't be restarted. Why can't it be restarted? Don't fool me. If there's something wrong with the computer, it can be solved by restarting it. Although Luo Dance didn't know how much Sister Long knew about the computer, she couldn't help laughing and crying, You've smashed the mainframe, so it can't be solved by restarting it. Kelowna's Shinryu recalled what happened just now. It seemed that she did use a little strength for a moment. Of course, this strength didn't cause any damage in the end. After all, this city was still in a state of anti-magic. But after all, it was a vacuum, so even if it was anti-magic, her strength was still amazing. Long Shirua grabbed Luodance's hand, saying without hesitation, "Hurry up! Let's go to the computer city right now." Now? Little Butterfly was stunned. Kelowna's Shinryu suddenly sat down, frowning. "It's faster to ask the old man to send it here. It seems that this game can only be played with their special computer." Without waiting for Luodance's response, Long Shirua picked up the phone and dialed the old man's guardian, who lived temporarily in the newly opened Peace Hotel in the suburbs, Fire Cloud Evil God, who could be called a national scholar. As for Fire Cloud Evil God, who was troubled by other things, it was unknown how he would react after receiving such a request from Kelowna's Shinryu. Just like the chosen ones in the Jade fantasy world didn't know what was happening in the real world. They might not have the time or interest to know these things. In the monster's nest, Boss Lua looked at, "Your man doesn't want you anymore," which suddenly stopped moving. He shook his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He walked to "Your man doesn't want you anymore." Beside him, he stared at the face randomly generated by the game system. Boss Luo suddenly chuckled. "It's a pity that I didn't get to see you in person." The moment she said those angry words, the waves in her heart must have turned the sky and earth upside down. He could even imagine that her expression would be as gorgeous as the rosy clouds and as blazing as fire. She was like a ball of fire. Every moment, the light and heat were so intense that people couldn't help but want to hug her and hold her tightly. Boss Luo reached out as if he wanted to hold a ball of fire, and gently held it. "Your man doesn't want you anymore." In that instant, her body suddenly shattered and disappeared. When the character went offline, the character would naturally disappear. After all, she wasn't a chosen one, and wouldn't be one. Would there be a day in the future when this cluster of soul fire would also extinguish in his palm? Luochu closed his eyes, thinking about whether he would be happy or something else if such a day came. At this moment, in the darkness, a figure was quietly approaching. Like a shadow, the figure quietly approaching suddenly accelerated, and a cold light pierced through. Luochu turned around. At the moment when the cold light pierced through, a barrier was directly generated outside his body, blocking the attacker's attack outside the barrier. The attacker was shocked, but his face was also exposed. This attacker was the one who Qian Xiu attacked at the beginning. He hid behind the tree roots and fled later. After the attacker failed in his attack, he showed a surprised expression. In the next moment, he quickly followed the shadow, intending to sneak into the maze-like monster nest tunnel. "King Snake," said Boss Luo suddenly. The figure of the sneak attacker who was about to escape suddenly froze and stopped in his tracks. Slowly, he turned around vigilantly and looked into Luo Chio's eyes. "Yua, what did you say?" The attacker frowned at this moment. Boss Luo smiled slightly and said, "Your time should be limited. It's not easy to have such an opportunity. If you use it on me, wouldn't it be too wasteful? After all, I don't know when I will encounter such an opportunity next time." "Who are you?" The attacker was silent for a moment, but he couldn't help but panic. Could it be that this little wizard knows my true identity? This is impossible. That kind of special item was obtained from the hands of the upper-class aristocrats. It involved many unspeakable things. He was very careful and never revealed it to anyone. He also quickly searched in his memory, but he couldn't find any information about this little wizard. He was sure that he didn't know this person. In the circle of Chosen One, there seemed to be no such person. But this little wizard came with Azure Sky Sword Sage and Azure Sky Saintess. His identity was a mystery, so he had to be afraid. "Who I am isn't important." Boss Luo shook his head. "After all, I don't want to affect your life here. Of course, if you want to ask me for help, I'll be very happy. You have something you want to do, but it's too difficult. You don't even have 100% confidence. Even now, you are still hesitating, right? The attacker looked left and right, but his eyes weren't completely focused on the little mage. He was confident that he could escape unscathed in his current state. Not long ago, he had escaped unscathed from the most powerful mage in the Alliance, the Blue Sky Sword Saint, which was the best proof of that. Help? The attacker sneered. He moved the dagger from his left hand to his right hand. Then, he reached his right hand behind his back and slightly bowed, facing the little wizard. What kind of help can you provide me? Let me see. Boss Luo sized up the attacker and said calmly, You have 2 deaths left. Not long after you entered the game, you died once due to an accident. You can use 1 death to exchange for my help. Of course, you can also die twice. The effect of 2 deaths is obviously better. The attacker couldn't help but gasp. The number of deaths was the biggest secret of every chosen one. Other than the Kelowna battle group, the other chosen ones would definitely keep the number of deaths a secret. How did this person know the number of deaths he had left? The attacker said in a deep voice, You are a new member of the agency? This was the only explanation, but this explanation made him even more shocked. If this little wizard was a new member of the agency, didn't it mean that everything about him was already under the agency's eyes? They already knew about his secret contact with the upper nobles? Don't worry. It won't be the situation that you are afraid of. Boss Luo shook his head. Everything that we have met and talked about is only between you and me. Also, you will understand that I can do whatever you want. As long as you agree. If you are willing, you can express it clearly. The attacker's heart was beating rapidly. In a daze, the attacker seemed to have returned to the moment when he was sitting in front of the computer and looking at the yes/no option that popped up on the game interface. Intuition. Intuition told him that this was his biggest chance, the only chance that he couldn't miss. You can really help me? The attacker's eyes were filled with a trace of fanaticism. Boss Luo smiled casually and said, Of course, anything within the 2 deaths you can pay for. The attacker took a step forward with murderous intent in his eyes. Can you help me kill the king's snake? 1 death. Boss Luo stretched out a finger. I can provide you with an item that can help you kill the king's snake. He has an item that can offset 1 death. It was a reward from killing the demon king in Hellcrown. A normal kill won't really kill him, it will only trigger the effect of this item. The attacker was shocked and kept silent. After killing the demon king Roger, he had always suspected that the Wu King snake must have obtained something, but he didn't know. But how did Boss Luo know? Why do you know this? I will know everything I want to know. Boss Luo said indifferently. Regarding this, you don't have to worry about it. Or rather, if I can't even know this, how can I provide you with help? The attacker frowned. 1 death could be exchanged for killing the king's snake. After the king's snake was completely dead, his inheritance would be chosen among a limited number of people in the Kelowna battle group. Of course, it was also possible that the inheritance would be shared by a limited number of people. He might be able to inherit everything, or he might lose the selection and become the one who didn't get anything, or he might only get a part of it. But no matter what, this would be the result after he paid 1 death, and the other people would be able to enjoy the fruits of his labor. If the authority couldn't appoint him as the successor of the King's snake, it meant that he was completely working for others. This was obviously a scene that he didn't want to see. He spoke again in silence with a trace of fierceness. What about 2 deaths? 2 deaths? Of course, you can do more things with this. Boss Luo said with a smile. For example, you can replace the King's snake or even become the new King's snake. You will be able to get everything of the King's snake, even the item that can be used as a substitute for death. Even you will be respected by the members of the Kelowna battle group, just like how they respect the King's snake. His breathing and heartbeat accelerated at this moment. 2 deaths in exchange for everything that Boss Luo had described. 2 deaths meant that after he used them up, he would be in a state where he couldn't be resurrected. No, there was still an item that could be used as a substitute for death. The Luking snake had one right now. Perhaps, in the higher level of exploration, he would be able to obtain more perfect items with better effects. As long as he could replace the Luking snake, he would be the commander of the Kelowna battle group. All the resources would be given priority. Now, the item that could be used as a substitute for death in the hands of the Luking snake would also be given priority by the agency. Thinking of this, the huge sense of imbalance was like a poisonous snake, crazily biting the heart of the sneak attacker. They were both risking their lives for the agency in this game world. Why should the item that could offset one death be given priority to the King Snake? It was because the King Snake was the first to enter this world. Can you really let me replace the King Snake? The sneak attacker's breathing became faster and faster. Even the upper nobles can't do it. This is the contract. Boss Luo snapped his fingers. You can feel that as long as you are willing, I can do it for you, 2 deaths. Looking at the slowly unfolding parchment scroll, the sneak attacker felt like he was looking at a dream and illusion. His hands trembled as he wanted to touch it little by little. He felt it. He could feel the omnipotent will of this man. The sneak attacker took a deep breath and said with a firm gaze, I agree. This was the biggest thought in his heart, to replace the King Snake. Outside the monster's nest, the 3 major battle groups and the Azure Sky Saintess of the Grand Alliance were still in a fierce battle with the new floor master, an endless tree monster. The endless tree which had the ability to animate the entire endless tree sea. It was far more terrifying than any of the floor masters that had challenged it in the past. In fact, the existence of the endless tree which made the chosen ones of the 3 large groups suspect that it was even more terrifying than the last floor master that had yet to appear. 1,000 Delicate Feathers also had this feeling. Her profession was more of a jack of all trades. She could use any skill with various applications, but there was only one shortcoming. That was, it was difficult for her attack power to reach Qianxiu's limit. Of course, even if she couldn't reach Qianxiu's limit, she could still firmly occupy the position of the second strongest person in the Grand Alliance. After all, there were many artifacts that were given as a top-up. But these artifacts that were given as a top-up seemed to be unable to break the defense of Endless Tree Monster. At the very least, they couldn't cause high damage. They could only rely on the method of grinding and wearing out the opponent to death. Come on, the floor master's health bar is only half left. 1,000 Delicate Feathers waved her hand and cast a large area of incentive buff. Those chosen ones of the auxiliary professions who also had enhancement skills saw this scene, and they had the urge to kneel down. Azure Sky Saintess alone could take on the auxiliary professions of 2 teams. It's done. King Snake retreated at this time. Most of his skills were still in cooldown, so he could only choose to rest at this time. But looking at the battle situation that was gradually becoming clearer, he couldn't help but sigh quietly and show a smile. Finally, I can save everyone's lives. Chapter 1589. He didn't know when it started, but the number of people around him had gradually increased, and the number of eyes that were focused on him was also increasing. At first, he was just an inconspicuous employee, even though he worked in a special department like the Kelowna Authority. But he was really just a small employee who was responsible for doing odd jobs, a purely civilian job. He didn't have great ambitions and didn't intend to do anything. He just wanted to live a peaceful life. Although he was just a small employee in the authority, the benefits were very good. Although the work needed to be confidential and he often couldn't go home, the benefits were very good. Good benefits meant that his family could live well. But because of the confidentiality regulations, He could only tell his family that he was working in another place and could only go home once a year. Fortunately, his parents and brother were taking care of him, so he only needed to send money home every month. The clerical work in the authority was very boring. Even if it was a holiday, he couldn't go out without permission. It seemed to be no different from being in prison. Except for the good benefits, it was really good. He thought that he would probably spend his life like this. As for things like getting married and having children, he never thought about it. Ordinary. Every day was ordinary and boring. After all, he didn't have any special talents. But he was lucky enough to find such a high-paying job. What else was there to be dissatisfied with? In fact, there would be. People were such contradictions. He envied those who had qualifications countless times, envied them for being able to touch the extraordinary power, envied them for being able to go out and deal with the legendary cultivators and monsters of the demon world. Once was good. He wanted to experience the kind of life that could make people's blood boil just by listening to it. Once was good. Yes/no. Yes. Without any hesitation, when the opportunity came, he chose yes. So, he became the first person in the entire authority to enter the world of Jade Fantasy. It was the first time so many people's eyes gathered on him. For the first time, he was looked forward to, those big shots he once couldn't reach, those geniuses he envied day and night. That was intoxicating. It turned out that there would be such a day when he could stand on such a stage and become the protagonist of the stage. It turned out that he didn't need to be mediocre and could also make a career. Please name your name. The chosen one. King Snake. My name is King Snake. He had a small wish, and that was to become the dragon in his parents' hearts. King Snake, the king of snakes who could turn into a dragon. I can do it. I can save their lives. King Snake made up his mind. Others thought that he had no death count, so they guessed that he had some scruples. But they didn't understand him and didn't know that he didn't care about death count. What he cared about was how to ensure the safety of the chosen of the Kelowna battle group. For what? For he didn't know what it was. He just wanted to do this. But the development of the Kelowna battle group was not only due to his own efforts, but also the support of the entire administration. This was why the Kelowna battle group had such a high status in the Human Alliance. If the Kelowna battle group was wiped out by the Endless Tree Demon, then all their efforts would be in vain. He and the other members of the Kelowna battle group would directly disappear and die. As a result, the battle strength of the Kelowna battle group would be greatly reduced. After that, the territory that the Kelowna battle group had painstakingly taken from the natives would also be handed over to the other battle groups that had been eyeing them covetously. King Snake. Even the higher-ups of the Administrative Bureau had long denied that this was an internet ghost incident. This might be a completely foreign world, and the game was just an entrance to it. The secret of this big world must be in its upper layer. If one wanted to reach the upper layer, it was obviously impossible to rely on ordinary exploration. Only with the support of a huge amount of resources would it be possible. The territory of the battle groups was the foundation of the production of these resources. Captain Yu, can you come over for a moment? At this time, King Snake suddenly used the private channel to call a mage who was fighting Endless Tree Demon to his side. Captain Yu wasn't the name of this mage when he was a chosen one. It was his name before he entered the game world. That's right, before this Captain Yu entered the game world, he was a small captain in a department under the administration. He was one of the latest batch of players to enter the game. He was half a year later than the King Snake. However, because of the uniqueness of the Kelowna battle group, he immediately became one of the few vice commanders of the Kelowna battle group after entering the game. King Snake was very respectful to Captain Yu and had never done anything that crossed the line. "Commander, what's the matter?" Captain Yu frowned. Now was the crucial moment to take down the floor leader. Why did King Snake suddenly ask him to come back. Logically speaking, King Snake's temperament had always been very calm. As the first person to enter the game world, King Snake's actions had always been in the eyes of this group of people from the administration. King Snake's character had never been interrupted in this half a year and had already been evaluated countless times. Even if Captain Yu was the captain, he had never had the intention of taking away the position of the commander of the King Snake. This fellow, although he was only an ordinary office worker, but his performance in the past half a year had already received the unanimous approval of all the members. Captain Yu, although Azure Sky Saintus, suddenly appeared this time. King Snake quickly said, "I have a bad feeling that the promotion of the floor leader may not be so simple." Captain Yu opened his mouth and his heart moved. He seemed to know what King Snake wanted to say. King Snake said in a deep voice, "I just sent you an email. It has the password of my bank account in Saint Light City. The funds of the battle group and most of the precious items are inside. If anything happens to me, please pass my equipment to Froggy, Ali, and Big Pow to inherit. The three of them have the same profession as me, of course. You can choose one to inherit all of them. I believe the organization will make a good decision. Azure Sky Saintus has appeared. We can defeat this floor leader. As the commander, how can you be discouraged?" Captain Yu couldn't help but be angry. King Snake said faintly, "But I don't have any more deaths. Scapegoat dolls are forbidden to be used in the battle group of floor leaders. So, if anything happens to me, I'll leave the battle group to you, Captain Yu." King Snake. At this time, King Snake smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry, I'm just preparing for the worst. But according to the current situation, it's obvious that I'll be very safe. Those brothers who didn't die many times will also be very safe, right?" Captain Yu knocked King Snake's head in annoyance. "Don't be silly. If anything happens, I'll block in front of you. I haven't died once. Isn't it just a scapegoat dolls that can't be used in the battle of floor leaders? When we explore deeper in the future, I'll find you a doll that can be directly immune to any death. Damn it, we're just playing the game, not being played by the game. Now, I'm going back to my position, so I came down. The pressure on the third team is not light. You play the game here. If there's no time, don't rush around." Seeing Captain Yu use a speed increase skill without saying anything and return to his original attacking position, King Snake's eyes warmed and he softly said thank you. "Okay. Everyone can safely complete the subjugation of this floor leader." King Snake thought to himself. Just at this moment, an arrow shot out like a shooting star. An arrow shot from the forest accurately pierced through his back and his heart. "You've been ambushed by a mysterious upper noble. You've been corroded. Please remove the poison as soon as possible. Purification potion failed. Please use a higher level purification potion as soon as possible." This was already the highest level purification potion at the moment. King Snake fell to the ground and his vision gradually became blurry. At this last moment, when he felt despair, King Snake didn't ask for help. Instead, he used his authority as the leader and opened the broadcast of the battle group. With the loudest and angriest voice in his life, he shouted, "Be careful! There's an upper noble ambush!" At this moment, the terrifying poison had already flowed through his entire body along with his beating heart. The King Snake forcefully grasped the position of his heart. In the end, he lost all feeling. "Please name your name." "The Chosen One." "King Snake." "My name is King Snake." He had a small wish, and that was to become the dragon in his parents' hearts. At this moment, King Snake's body turned into a glimmer and split into many photons. They drifted around as if they would scatter with the wind. At this moment, a figure slowly walked over, and the photons that were about to scatter gathered again. Finally, King Snake's body completely stabilized and returned to its original appearance. However, A ball of soul light shot out from a king snake's body and entered the hand of the figure that was walking over. Lucio. He looked at the glimmer in his hand and said softly, "Don't worry, someone will inherit your will. Be careful. There's an upper noble ambush." King Snake's voice exploded in the ears of the chosen ones, in the battle group of Kelowna. At that moment, the professionals who had detection skills in the battle group all expanded their detection range. Finally, they locked onto a mysterious figure under the sea of trees. 1,000 delicate feathers also sensed the existence of this mysterious figure, and she commanded her Pegasus to charge over. The trees were instantly pushed down by the Pegasus, and the wind blew them apart. The mysterious figure that was hidden in the forest was instantly exposed. Identify. An upper noble. 1,000 delicate feathers was slightly surprised. Be careful. This upper noble is at the king level, and he might not be weak. There was no need for this Azure Sky Saintess of the League of Mercenaries to remind them. The moment this upper noble appeared, the people of the 3 battle groups immediately attacked together. Since the upper nobles could obtain the power of evolution by killing the chosen ones, the upper nobles and the chosen ones were enemies from the very beginning. At this moment, facing the fact that he was exposed, this upper noble was shocked, but he didn't panic. He had successfully killed King Snake, the leader of the Kelowna battle group. As long as he could escape unscathed, he would be a hero when he returned. He didn't want to continue fighting, he just wanted to get out of the battle as soon as possible. These chosen ones couldn't leave the battle, but the upper nobles could. Because of this, they were nobler than the chosen ones. They were upper nobles. However, before the chosen ones that were chasing after him arrived, a bright sword energy suddenly appeared in front of this upper noble. The oncoming sword light had left a striking sword mark between his eyebrows. His eyes were wide open at this moment, and they were filled with disbelief. "You? How are you still alive?" After this upper-class noble recovered from his shock, he was deeply enraged. Didn't that guy named Frog swear that the king snake couldn't be resurrected? He had used the poisonous arrow to pierce through Froggy's heart. How was Froggy still able to stand up and deal a fatal blow to him? The upper noble who sneak attacked finally fell to the ground. His body began to melt like mud and eventually merged into the ground. This was how the upper nobles died. The people who had just arrived saw this scene and clapped their hands and praised, "Good job, Captain! You killed an upper noble so easily." "Captain, are you hurt?" Facing the concern of the people in the battle group, he stood there silently with a long sword in his hand. A complicated expression flashed in his eyes. He shook his head and said with a hoarse voice, "I'm fine. You guys, don't worry about me. Go and fight and take down the floor master as soon as possible." "Okay." Looking at the warriors who rushed toward the new floor master, Endless Tree Demon, he lowered his head and looked at his hands. Then, he touched his face and said, "How can this be? How can this be? How can this be?" In the end, his voice turned into a roar. He really replaced King Snake. No, he directly became King Snake. After that devil-like deal. Of course, you can do more things. For example, you can replace a King Snake and even become the new King Snake. You can get everything that King Snake has, and you can even die for him. You can even get the respect of the members of the Kelowna battle group, like how they respect King Snake. I became King Snake. However, this wasn't the result that he wanted. Replace in this way. No! He roared again. At the same time, memories of the past flooded into his mind. They were the life of King Snake. From when he was young, to when he was a child, to when he grew up, the experiences of the King Snake had become his everything. Even the words that the King Snake had said to Captain Yu slowly rang in his mind at this time, King Snake. Chapter 1590. Most of the time, we would have such doubts. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I going to do in the future? But most of the time, such doubts would disappear quickly. Philosophical questions about life weren't the questions that most people would pay attention to. However, the doubts didn't disappear from his heart. Instead, it was like a bottomless abyss that kept devouring his rationality. Who am I? Was it the frog who had developed a sense of identity and attachment to the jade fantasy world and didn't want this game world to be broken, so he planned to stay in this world forever? He even secretly contacted the upper-class nobles and planned to secretly eliminate all the chosen ones? Is it the king snake, the leader of the Kelowna battle team, who was mediocre but eventually became one of the top 10 battle teams in the League of Legends? No matter who it was, whether it was the frog or the king snake, to Hiyu, they were all the same as in his previous life. The mirror was just an ordinary mirror that was stored in King Snake's personal space. Looking at the reflection in the mirror, Hiyu couldn't help but become silent. No matter who it was, indeed, no matter who it was, they would always show up as King Snake. If Hiyu was the frog, after inheriting all the memories of King Snake, he deeply felt how despicable he was. Facing a King Snake, who selflessly contributed to the battle team and even planned to let Hiyu inherit his property, Hiyu was undoubtedly suffering from spiritual reproach. If he was the King Snake, facing the frog who colluded with the upper nobles and tried to kill all the chosen ones, he would feel extremely sad, disappointed, and self-reproach. No matter who it was, the pain was actually double. Hiyu looked at the members of the Kelowna battle team who were fearlessly fighting against Endless Tree Demon. He had no fighting spirit at all, and his eyes were dull. Leader. Suddenly, someone patted his back hard. The force wasn't strong, but it was enough to wake he up from his daze. It was a mage who was quite strong in the battle team. Before entering the game world, he was an official low-level agent in the agency. No matter if it was the frog or the king snake, he had memories of the other party. "Are you okay?" a member of the battle team asked with concern. He shook his head subconsciously. The group member nodded and drank a bottle of recovery medicine. His mana was slowly recovering. Later, don't rush too far ahead. Although the Azure Sky Saintess is here, I'm afraid that if something happens, it won't be good. We came in together, and from now on, we will go out together safely. You've done a lot for the battle group. You should rest when you need to. Otherwise, how can we, the official agents in the real world, show our faces? He still nodded silently. The system's notifications constantly rang in his ears. Those were the words of concern from the other team members, and there was no lack of words of respect. You will even receive the respect of the members of the Kelowna Legion, just like how they respect the King Snake. At that time, those words sounded so ironic. He clenched his fists tightly, and his fingertips even pierced into his palms. At this time, Hiyu could foresee some things in the future. If Hiyu continued to carry out the thoughts of the frog and betrayed all the human chosen ones, he would definitely fall into crazy self-reproach because of the King Snake's memories in his mind. Even if he only had a similar thought now, his heart would become extremely uncomfortable. The so-called reproach of conscience was nothing more than that. He even sorrowfully discovered that in King Snake's memory, the thought of betrayal as a frog was actually the side that couldn't withstand a single blow. When he decided to give up on the idea of betrayal as a frog, not only did he not feel the unwillingness of a frog, he even faintly felt a kind of relaxed feeling. He suddenly understood something. Whether it's the king snake or the frog. He raised his head and looked at the battle in front of him. He muttered, we all have the same desire, to be the most dazzling, the brightest one." The mage beside he took a deep breath and raised his sword again. He muttered to himself, "I'm not the king snake, but I'm the king snake." Since I used a despicable method to replace you, then I'll let the Wu King Snake's name be forever recorded in the history book. From now on, all the glory will belong to you, King Snake. In this world, there will be no more frog, no more despicable Tian Chiwen. This is the biggest punishment for me. As Ahi spoke, Ahi roared. It was unknown whether it was with anger, sorrow, or regret. He turned into a flash of light and charged in front of everyone, slashing at the endless tree which. He was as brave as the Wu King Snake, as brave as the Wu King Snake. That everyone knew. The endless tree which SHP is almost empty. Everyone, let's work harder. Today, we'll kill this new floor master. He let out an earth-shattering roar, instantly pushing the fighting spirit of the Kelowna battle group to the peak. Did this guy take the wrong medicine? Thousand Delicate Feathers, who was thinking about how to increase the damage, couldn't help but secretly click her tongue. At this moment, a sword light suddenly shot up into the sky. It came from the monster's nest, which was where the roots of the endless tree which appeared. The sword light directly chopped off a huge branch of the endless tree which. Then, the sword light disappeared, and the Azure Sky Sword Saint of the Great Alliance was floating in the air. Behind him was a pair of wings formed by energy. This pair of wings had a name, Battle Energy Wings. It's the Azure Sky Sword Saint. He's here. Sure enough, where the Azure Sky Saintess is, how can there be no Azure Sky Sword Saint? This time we're in. Instantly, the people from the battle groups were energized. Butcher and the other battle group leaders knew that the Azure Sky Saintess and the Azure Sky Saintess were nearby, and they weren't surprised. Instead, they wondered why the Azure Sky Saintess came out first and the Azure Sky Sword Saint didn't come out until now. That fellow seemed to have just rushed out of the nest. Could it be that he found something in the nest? Even if he did, what can you do? Do you want to gang up on the Azure Sky Sword Saint? Or do you want to provoke him so that he can challenge your entire battle group? I think the Azure Sky Sword Saint will win. F*CKU. If you can do that, I'll call you Daddy as long as you take me away from here. Shut up. Now that the Sword Saint has appeared, the Floor Master will definitely die. Let's think about how to deal more damage, so that we can get more rewards after the Floor Master dies. On the side of the battle group leaders were talking privately. However, in the center of the battle group, the Azure Sky Saintess and the Azure Sky Sword Saint didn't try to hide their conversation. They didn't need to. Husband, this tree demon's skin is a bit thick. I'm exhausted. It's okay. Leave the rest to me. Qian Xiu shook his head and reached out to rub Qian Yu's delicate head. Then, he took out a pear and took a bite. This thing was given by his benefactor to restore energy. Of course, Qian Xiu didn't care about the effect of this kind of roadside pear. The main reason was that this kind of thing also had a shelf life. It would spoil if it was kept in his personal space for a long time. If he just picked it casually, it would be fine if it spoiled. But after all, it was given by his benefactor out of kindness. He couldn't just throw it away. It took up a lot of space in his personal space, so he simply ate it himself. Of course, he didn't think that this kind of fragrant pear, very effective, would have a good effect, so he took out a few bottles of advanced recovery potions while eating the pear. Wait, what's going on? But at this time, Qian Xiu's eyes widened. His energy value was recovering at a terrifying speed at this time. Although his energy value was not consumed much, the base of his energy value was quite large. Even if it was an advanced recovery potion, it would take at least 3 bottles to slowly fill up the consumed energy. But at this time, what's wrong, husband? Qian Xiu checked his character status at this time. He looked at the 20-minute buff caused by eating the fragrant pear, very effective, and said with difficulty, I seem to have 20 minutes of infinite mana. What? Qian Xiu didn't speak, but the light wings behind him suddenly flapped, and he rushed into the sky. The black and white shoulders collided, and a terrifying force was gathering between his crisscrossed swords. 1,000 delicate feathers blinked. Why did this guy rush into the sky like a madman when he was only talking halfway, and he used his strongest killing move? The killing move of Azure Sky Sword Sage was so powerful that it once destroyed the castle of Demon King City directly. 1,000 delicate feathers naturally recognized it, but this thing could only be released by Qian Xiu, who had an inhuman energy value base. If it were other professions, even if they learned it, it was just a decoration at most. You are stupid. You used all the energy right away? I don't have much instant mana left. Even 1,000 delicate feathers had to be anxious at this time. The recovery potions in this game, especially the potions to recover energy, were simply terrible. The instant mana in her inventory was given by the one-time 10 million level pay-to-win system. She had been using it carefully until now. A terrifying killing move descended. At this time, under the storm-like sword light, a layer of the endless tree demon's flesh was directly scraped off. Even if this new floor master was a tree, everyone dared not to be secretly shocked when they saw its tragic situation at this moment. But a new round of terrifying sword light appeared again in the next moment. Azure Sky Sword Sage, who was high in the sky, was like a sun at this time. The ultimate killing move came down one after another as if he was cheating. Everyone went from surprise to numbness until they finally heard the system prompt that Endless Tree Demon had been killed. It was like waking up from a dream. This is definitely a bug. A swordsman below who witnessed the whole process. He, who was also a swordsman, widened his eyes at this time. Is this still a human? Such an ultimate killing move was released freely. Not to mention a new floor master, even the strongest, Holy Kingdom, in the Grand Alliance was in danger of being destroyed, okay? Regardless of the shock of the people in the Grand Battle Group at this moment, the new floor master was finally killed. The battle circle also disappeared as a result. The people in the Grand Battle Group finally escaped the crisis of being wiped out. Qian Xiu slowly landed on the ground. 1,000 delicate feathers came up directly, pulled his ear and asked, "Did you take the wrong medicine? Do you have to be so exaggerated to kill a floor master? I'm going to confiscate your instant mana back." But she was just saying. She thought that the limited instant mana was not enough for Qian Xiu to play like this. That kind of killing move consumed nearly 80% of Qian Xiu's energy. He didn't know how many instant mana he had used to kill this floor master. "I didn't use instant mana." Qian Xiu shook his head. "Then what did you eat?" "A pear." Qian Xiu looked at 1,000 delicate feathers blankly at this time and opened his mouth. "The effect is very good." Qian Xiu shook his head, suddenly shivered, and immediately asked, "Benefactor? Where is my benefactor?" Only then did he realize that his benefactor, a little mage, who was in a team with him, had gone offline at this time. While the two were puzzled, the people in the Grand Battle Group came one after another and thanked the two for their help. Qian Xiu said with a solemn expression at this time, "Everyone, I think the appearance of the new floor master this time is probably a conspiracy of the upper-class aristocrats. I suspect that the upper-class aristocrats may have the means to let the king monster evolve into a floor master." So, Qian Xiu told about the incident where he was attacked by the upper-class aristocrats in the nest. At this time, King Snake, the leader of the Kelowna Battle Group, proposed to go back to the Exploration Army's camp first to discuss this matter. After all, everyone had fought a big battle and still accumulated. Although the stamina potion had the effect of eliminating fatigue, the mental fatigue could not be relieved by any medicine. "Then let's go back." Qian Xiu nodded. As the most powerful sword master in the Human Grand Alliance had nodded at this time, everyone naturally had no objections. They packed up the spoils and then withdrew from the endless sea of trees. The endless sea of trees. After the battle, it was scorched everywhere. But soon, it would return to the appearance of a primeval forest again. The earth would be rejuvenated again, and the trees would sprout again. On the scorched earth, there was still the breath of flames. Little Mage, who had already gone offline, walked slowly in the scorched earth. A soft glimmer of light floated in his palm at this time. Little Mage looked at the light in his palm. This was the soul of King Snake. According to the rules, the souls of those who had died after exhausting the number of deaths in the game world would become the items of the shop. It seemed to have understood its fate, and the light gradually faded at this time. According to the original plot design, Boss Luo suddenly said at this time, when the Chosen One's exploration of the upper level reaches the 5th floor, a new combat system, the Star Spirit Descends, will be activated. Are you willing to become a Star Spirit and fight for your former comrades? Its gradually dissipating light suddenly brightened at this time. Boss Luo said calmly, "Go. You will shine again in the future. I look forward to you being more dazzling than now." That light rose from Luocho's palm, rose, and disappeared into the sky. Finally, the sky broke through the clouds. Boss Luo opened his eyes. The surrounding servers were still flashing. Eve was performing her work seriously. Luocho glanced out the window. Unknowingly, he played the game for a night. He really smelled like a stinky college student. Chapter 1591. In the void, in the crevice of the dimension, there was a huge piece of barren land floating in the void. As far as the eye could see, there were only huge bare rocks. Suddenly, a trembling hand appeared on one of the boulders. Following that, a tattered sleeve appeared on the arm. Finally, the owner of the trembling hand climbed up the huge rock with great difficulty. Then, he laid down on the rock like a dead dog, Taiyinzi. The afro wig was gone. He didn't know how many original void demons had taken it away. Did the black soul need to breathe? Of course not. The black soul didn't even need food. God knew why Taiyinzi was gasping for breath at this moment. You scared me to death. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have agreed to Master's request and come to this barren place. Lofty ambitions? Become the Black Soul King? Impossible, it would never happen in this lifetime. The original void demons here were all very strong. They were huge and hurt when they beat people up. He really didn't like this place. Taiyinzi didn't know how long he had been wandering in this godforsaken place. He didn't even see the entrance to the Eternal Night Palace, the so-called base camp of the Supreme Transcendence, a lost paradise of the void. He almost lost his life 5, 6, 7 or 8 times. It was really too dangerous. Let's lie down for a while to calm down. The 500-year-old ghost slowly closed his eyes. This kind of laziness was probably cultivated on the main god mountain of Jade Fantasy. Unfortunately, there were no servants here to serve him. Well, there wasn't even a ghost. Where did the refugees come from? At this moment, a rough voice came. Taiyinzi was startled. He couldn't accurately calculate how long he had been in the crevice of the dimension. It felt like a long time had passed. What kind of experience was it to not hear a person's voice for a long time? It could make people feel less excited after hearing a person's voice. But, other than him, who else could speak here? Damn it! Taiyinzi immediately got up. On the huge rock, a man wearing a Ronin's clothes and wooden clogs appeared out of nowhere. He held a wine cup in his hand and a long and short Japanese sword on his waist. "Brother, are you Brother Musashi?" Taiyinzi suddenly asked with a shiver. "Someone." Master Musashi looked at the old man in rags in surprise and asked curiously, "You know me?" "I don't know you. The people I know you." Taiyinzi quickly ran up. "Taisetsu. I'm Taisetsu's friend. He introduced me to you." Indeed, Master Musashi was introduced by Taisetsu before Taiyinzi left. In order to let Taiyinzi recognize Master Musashi immediately, Taisetsu not only described Musashi's appearance in detail, but also drew a picture of Master Musashi casually. It was not the style of a spiritual painter, so Tainzi could barely recognize him. That was to repay Tainzi's favor of the magic mirror hidden on the main god mountain. Oh? Taisetsu introduced you? Master Wu Chang sized him up from head to toe, and then became even more curious. Why did he introduce you here? Tainzi had already thought of an excuse. I've admired the lost paradise of the void for a long time. Now that I've been promoted to this place by chance, I'm really overjoyed. I also heard that the Transcendence Organization is the most powerful organization in the void, so I've come to visit you, hoping to join your organization. Oh. Master Musashi smiled casually. I see. Well, since you're introduced by Taisetsu, come with me. Unexpectedly, it went so smoothly. Could it be that the old Taoist's luck had finally changed and he was lucky this time? Tainzi suddenly changed his appearance, and his tattered clothes disappeared. He turned around and looked like an immortal. Of course, of course. By the way, I heard that Master Musashi is the gatekeeper of the Eternal Night Palace. Why are you in this desolate land? Is the Eternal Night Palace far away? Oh, I'm just here for a stroll. After all, it's right in front of the door. Master Musashi laughed and pointed below the desolate land. Tainzi looked over and saw a quaint palace floating quietly under this desolate land. What the F***ck? Oh right. If you want to join us, you have to go through a test. It's the same even if you're introduced by Taisetsu. Master Musashi suddenly turned around and said, after all, rules are rules. But don't worry, you're introduced by Taisetsu. With my relationship with Taisetsu, the test is just a formality. Of course, of course. Tainzi, who was well versed in the truth, chuckled, Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for Master Wu Chang. Don't worry, the test is just a formality. Master Musashi nodded. There's a coordinate tablet here. It records the left side of a place. Go to that place and pick a few blood-kindred fruit. Then you'll pass the test. If it was just picking a few fruits, it wouldn't be part of the test, right? Even if it was just a formality, it couldn't be too fake, right? Tainzi suddenly felt that there was something fishy. He looked at Master Musashi in confusion. Master Musashi said seriously, It's like this. This place is where we have to test to join the guild. But don't worry, some of our members have already fought their way through. It's very safe now. You must know that you're introduced by Taisetsu. With my relationship with Taisetsu, I won't let you come into any danger. So don't worry and go. At most, you'll meet a primordial void demon that was just born a day or two ago. You're completely capable of handling it. Speaking of which, if you can't even handle one or two primordial void demons, even if you're introduced by Taisetsu, it's really not easy for me to handle you. Tainzi reckoned that if it was just a primordial void demon that was just born a day or two ago, he indeed had nothing to fear. He nodded. Yes, I'll do as Master Musashi says. I'll definitely pick the blood-kindred fruits for you. Here, these are the coordinates. As for this, it's my token. Master Musashi took out 2 tokens and handed them to Tainzi. If you run into any trouble inside, just take out my token. Others will give me some face and won't make things difficult for you. After all, you're introduced by my brother Taisetsu. Yes. Tainzi took the tokens with a grin. There were people in the mountains, behind the scenes, fighting fake battles. He had done too many of these things before he was tricked into the white jade token by his junior sister, Yusanyang 500 years ago. Now that he saw Master Musashi's operation, he felt as if he had met a kindred spirit. His eyes were smiling like crescent moons. Be careful along the way. Master Musashi reminded him again. The blood-kindred fruits will disappear once they're in the ground. Ordinary items can't be stored. It's best if you catch them with your hands. That's probably the only difficult part. Yes, it's a piece of cake. Tainzi kept nodding. This Master Musashi is pretty good. Taisetsu seems to have a good relationship with the Transcendence organization. He's taking advantage of him. He really likes to take advantage of others. By the way, what's the name of the place Master Musashi wants me to go to? Taiyinzi, who was ready to set off, asked calmly. Master Musashi said casually, "It's called the Land of Falling Air. It's an ordinary place. Everyone knows that it's a place with only a pile of broken stones." "I see." Taiyinzi nodded. He turned into a black fog and slowly floated out of this desolate land. Master Musashi waved at him and watched him leave. "Good luck. If you don't die, I'll take you to see the king." There wasn't any test to join the Transcendence organization. If there was, he would only need to enter the throne room once and be examined by the throne room. As for why Master Musashi gave Taiyinzi such a test, he looks like a traitor. How did Taisetsu get to know such a guy? In short, Taiyinzi had successfully made contact with the Transcendence organization. During classes and rest days, students were free to move around the town. Of course, most of them chose this time to improve their studies. After all, this university had always sent a large number of elites to Britain. Therefore, even though this university was bustling, there weren't many students in the town during rest days. Occasionally, one would see them, probably because they were tired from studying and came out to relax. "Student Luochio, you're here." Boss Luo, who was strolling around, bumped into Teacher Poulin on the street. At this time, Teacher Poulin was wearing the same white shirt and black trousers. He was still wearing white gloves. However, this time, he was carrying a bag of soil. "That's right, soil. Fresh soil with moss." "I'm just strolling around." Luochio smiled. "Teacher, you seem to be very busy." "A little," Teacher Poulin said casually. This town was too small. It wasn't strange for them to bump into each other. Even if they bumped into each other every day, it wouldn't be strange. The two of them chatted for a while before going their separate ways. Teacher Poulin was probably in a hurry to go somewhere. It was the direction of the town's hospital. Boss Luo was like a winemaker, quietly waiting for the sweet taste to ferment. He walked slowly on the old road of the town. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. It was as if he was walking in an empty world. Finally, he stopped in front of a church and looked inside curiously. If you have nothing to do, you might as well go to the church. Today was a rest day, and the church's priests would worship. This was Teacher Poulin's suggestion before he left. Standing in front of the church, Boss Luo curiously looked at the iconic cross on the top of the church. He smiled and walked in. At this time, the believers who came to worship the church arrived one after another. In a quiet corner of the bay, a huge fighter plane slowly landed. Because it was using a custom-made concealment spell from the Magician Association, it didn't attract any attention until it caused waves in the sea when it landed. Of course, it wouldn't attract attention at this time. After all, it was at the corner of the bay on the cliff. A figure quickly ejected from the hidden fighter plane and appeared on the beach. The clown knight of the night mechanism, Dagonet. Well, at least the former Prime Minister did a good thing and left the base. This fighter plane is quite convenient. Stepping on the fine sand, Mr. Clown had the urge to skip work and take a vacation here. Of course, it was just a thought. At this time, before the hidden fighter plane landed, two figures had been waiting somewhere on the beach. The moment Dagonet landed, they quickly rushed over. Two white adult men, one tall and one short. Dagonet glanced at them casually. "You two are the knights stationed in this town?" "Yes, Sir Dagonet," the tall man said respectfully. "My name is Muffin, and he is Wickedall. You know what I'm here for, right?" Dagonet thought and said. The two nodded in unison, and the tall man named Muffin continued, "We have received an email from Sir Gareth. Dagonet, while you are in the town, Wickedall and I will fully assist you in investigating the stowaways of the Holy Church. Now, we have a preliminary understanding of the whereabouts of this group of stowaways. They are hiding in an apartment in the town. Dagonet, do you think?" There's no hurry. Dagonet narrowed his eyes and smiled. Have you had breakfast? Muffin and Wickedall looked at each other and then shook their heads. They received orders from the headquarters of the night mechanism in the City of Fog last night and hadn't rested. Come, I'll treat you to breakfast. Dagonet walked between the two and put one hand on each of their shoulders. He said with a smile, Gentlemen, believe me, you must need a good breakfast today. Also, it's best if there are young girls working in restaurants for tuition fees. Young girls, focus on the main points. Sir Dagonet? Don't talk, just walk like this. Unexpectedly, Dagonet suddenly whispered at this time. Although Muffin and Wickedall hadn't been promoted to the headquarters of the night mechanism in the City of Fog, they were still elite knights trained by the night mechanism. At this time, when they heard Dagonet's words, they were shocked. Was there an enemy hiding in the dark? The two suddenly became alert. The short Wickedall quickly smiled and said, Then you must try the special breakfast here. Knight Wickedall, believe me, I will definitely be your benefactor. As long as you treat me well, I will definitely ask Gareth for a transfer order and transfer you back to the City of Fog from this damn place. Mr. Clown said at this time with a smile. It didn't matter if this Sir Dagonet was acting or just saying it casually. The knight named Wickedall took it seriously. Yes, yes. ########PS. There was a break in the previous chapter, so this chapter will be added. Chapter 1592. On the rest day, students were strolling around in twos and threes in the quiet school grounds. Especially the large grassland, which was a good place for them to get close to nature. At this time, a black beetle slowly drove into the school's driveway, attracting the attention of many students. It seemed that many students recognized this black beetle. Speaking of which, it wasn't that there weren't people who drove this car. There were many people in the world, but in this school, it seemed that there were only two people so far. One of them was naturally the owner of this black beetle. As for the other one, it was a newly transferred girl from the School of Theology. But most people seemed to only have an impression of this female freshman, and could not remember what she looked like. Maybe it was because she looked like a passerby, so they could not remember. Busybodies quickly gave such an explanation. Besides, this new girl seemed to have disappeared for a week. The owner of this black beetle left a deep impression. Lamias, a genius scholar of the physics department, one of the teachers of the physics department, but she often went out for academic exchanges, so she did not stay in the school to teach much. But there was one thing. Every student taught by Teacher Lamias, the classroom of the physics department was always full. God! Teacher Lamias is back. I have waited for half a semester and winter break. Finally the chance to woo the goddess came? No. Teacher Lamias is too sexy, I have to go back and take a shower. You still want to go back? I am already fine. In short, the black beetle still drove slowly, and finally came to the parking lot of the physics department building. Black hair, black dress, black shoes, but her skin was unusually pale, but she did not look weak, and could be called the perfect body among women. At this time, there were many students outside the parking lot, most of them were male. Teacher Lamias took off her sunglasses, smiled at the students, and nodded. After nodding, she went directly into the building, and went all the way back to her office. Although Lamias was only a teacher, she had her own private office. This was different from a certain idle teacher in a certain seminary, who could only sit in the main room and work together with several teachers. As soon as she pushed the door open, she found that there was already someone waiting in the office. It was a man in his 40s, dressed in a suit and leather shoes. If there were any students here, they would probably immediately recognize this middle-aged man as the school's discipline director. Seeing Lamias come in, the discipline master frowned and said, "Is this not a good time for you? The two knights stationed here have been quite active these few days." Lamias acted as if she didn't hear him. She walked straight to the tea table and turned around. "Coffee? Or black tea? Green tea is fine too. It's imported from China and tastes pretty good. The discipline master's frown deepened, but there was nothing he could do. Although he was the discipline master in the academy and theoretically had a higher status than teacher Lamia's, it was different in other places. Water then. It's healthy. Lamia's threw a bottle of mineral water to him. The discipline master frowned again. After Lamia's sat down, he slowly said, "People from the Holy Church are here. According to our intelligence, this time it's very likely that Wasco is leading the team. We speculate that they're here for Stella. In addition, the headquarters of the Knights in the Fog City also sent a 12th Knight. It's the clown Dagonet. This morning, Muffin and Wickador left the academy. It seems that they're going to help. So, you really shouldn't have come back at this time. It's very likely that your identity will be exposed." Lamia's looked at the discipline master in front of her expressionlessly. When the discipline master's expression became unnatural, she said indifferently, "Stella is the former warden of the Godly Might prison. He resigned for such a long time. The Holy Church has been hoping to summon him back to the headquarters. Over the years, there are always several groups of Holy Church lobbyists coming here every year. This time, they sent Wasco probably because they've reached the limit of their patience. As for the Knights, I'm afraid that they're also alarmed by the fact that Wasco is leading the team this time. However, the Knights probably don't know that a former warden of the Godly Might prison is hiding in a small town in their country. In general, these two groups of people are not coming for us." The discipline master said again, "There's one more thing about the former Prime Minister. You probably knew about his death a long time ago. However, he left behind a lot of things after his death. Our intelligence speculates that the Knights of Britain may have found out about the relationship between the former Prime Minister and us. Especially the matter of the Dragon Rider armor." Lamia said indifferently, "The Dragon Rider armor is just a simple model. Even if the Knights can crack it, they'll just have a few more toys at most. So what if they're exposed? We have more important things to do after this. This is directly related to the future of the Order. No matter what the Holy Church and the Knights do, they won't be a match for the Order in the future." Lamia's had always been very confident. The discipline master knew about this. However, she seemed to be a little overconfident at this moment. This made the discipline master have some guesses in his heart. Could it be that that thing is about to be completed? Soon. As long as we get one more holy relic. Lamia's rested her chin on her hands. Her great breasts pressed against the laptop on the table. She revealed a breathtaking smile. The discipline master couldn't help but gulp. However, compared to the temptation in front of his eyes, the shock and ecstasy in his heart couldn't be concealed. As the cadres of the Black faction, they had done a lot of things over the years. After 100 years of development, the restored order would definitely reach a higher level. After 100 years of preparation, from the moment they obtained the Impaler Duke's corpse, the plan was officially launched. Later, they successfully seized the holy relic of the Pachora's monastery. Finally, that plan was about to enter the final stage? If that's the case, then you shouldn't have come back at this time. The discipline master said sternly. Lamia said, "We need someone with pure holy power. Among so many prey, there's no one more suitable than the former warden of the Godly Might prison. If it wasn't for Stella living in seclusion here, the Order wouldn't have sent you to be stationed here all these years. Stella's strength is unfathomable." The discipline master shook his head. "I'm afraid that you alone won't be enough. After all, he was facing the former warden of the Godly Might prison, a powerful inhuman. The discipline master knew very well that Lamia's was an ordinary human in all aspects. At most, she was a relatively powerful human who had been trained. However, she was still very far away from becoming an inhuman. "One is enough." Lamia smiled. The one who crucified Saint Jesus was also a human. Vaguely, the discipline master seemed to have thought of something. He couldn't help but be slightly shocked. He blurted out, Could it be that thing has been completed? Lamia's didn't say anything. She just turned back and played with a pendant on her collar. She even said something else. Are there any good seedlings recently? After a while, the order will be completely closed. I think this is the last chance to take in new blood in a short time. The discipline master knew that with his authority, he was afraid that he could only go so far. He remembered that apart from being a member of the action team, Lamia's was also responsible for reviewing and recruiting new members. So, he said, there's nothing to pay attention to. However, there is an air of a large financial group studying here. Perhaps we can take them in as peripheral members and provide funds for the order. All right, do as you see fit. Lamia's nodded. During this period, I'll be attending classes for a few days. You just do as usual. The discipline master could only leave Lamia's office with a stomach full of doubts. After the discipline master left, Lamia's pulled open the curtains of the office and looked at the town outside. A strange color flashed in her eyes. What's so special about this place? Why are there so many devout souls? Shaking her head, Lamia stretched her body and took out a silver pistol from under her skirt. She disassembled it. After disassembling it, she began to clean it slowly, but it seemed that she was not satisfied with it. In fact, she had a beloved pistol, but she somehow lost it when she was in Ramalia. In a few seconds, Lamia's assembled the silver pistol again. Then, she turned her chair and faced the window. The muzzle of the pistol pointed at the sky and made a shooting motion. A hallelujah. Father Stella was playing the piano. The singing came from the mouth of the young choir children. Everyone kept quiet and listened to the sound of praising the Lord. The children were really cute like angels. Among them, the oldest was only 10 years old, and the youngest was only 4 years old. They were all children of the town. After the choir gathering, there was a prayer gathering. As usual, it was led by Father Stella. After that, he would give a lecture to everyone. In the church of the town, there was only one Father Stella. He took care of all the affairs of the church. It was said that every Easter, Father Stella would personally make gift. Almost every respectable man liked this kind priest, who was a little old and stout, and had a little bald on his forehead. After the lecture, there was a gathering. There were many different kinds of gatherings on Monday. The crowd would be divided into different rooms of the church. At this time, in a room of the church, Father Stella was listening to the hearts of the believers. Because they all lived in the same place, they all knew each other. She hasn't woken up yet. I don't know what to do. She is very devout. She has never missed a church gathering on the rest day. In the room, a man was covering his face in pain. His sad crying made the men sitting around him sympathize with him. Mr. Smith, the owner and chef of a famous restaurant in the town. They had all eaten Mr. Smith's food before, so they were more or less familiar with him. They knew about the misfortune that Mr. Smith had suffered, but they didn't expect that the difficulties of life would make this optimistic man cry like this. Father Stella comforted him in a low voice. He selected a few passages from the scripture and slowly read them in front of Mr. Smith. The priest's voice seemed to have the power to warm people's hearts. Mr. Smith had let go of his pain, but his mood was unknowingly relaxed. The difficulties were not solved. His wife was still lying in the hospital's intensive care unit, and his son was still missing. But he had a feeling that the future was good, and all the difficulties would eventually be solved. He regained his hope for life. "Thank you, Father," Mr. Smith said gratefully. He needed this kind of spiritual comfort. This would allow him to continue and not collapse. This was also the reason why he deliberately left the hospital today and came to the church. When the gathering was over, Mr. Smith would have a chance to rush back to the hospital. "You are all devout believers of the Lord." Father Stella's voice gradually became faintly discernible, blending into the hearts of the people bit by bit. In the room, a soft light flickered faintly, but the believers were in the comfortable state of their hearts being caressed, and did not seem to notice. But someone could notice. Mayor Lotta. At this moment, he was hiding outside the window of the room, and showed a hint of surprise. He had been squatting here for a long time. From early morning, when Father Stella began to prepare for the worship, he had been waiting. For the whole morning, he stared at the old man, Father Stella, and was about to doubt his life. Finally, at this moment, he waited for what he needed. Holy power. This old man was not simple, he had holy power, and looking at the situation, the quality of the holy power was quite high. This did not matter. What Mayor Lotta needed was just a trace of holy power leaked from Stella's identity at this time, and that was enough. The communication device in his hand quietly absorbed a little bit of holy power, and it reacted. That was enough. He could make a communication. Mayor Lotta was suddenly ecstatic, and felt that his bad luck had completely passed. He quickly got up and ran outside without saying a word. He wanted to contact the tribe in the inhuman domain, and let the tribe send reinforcements. Wait for it, old mage, the humiliation you have inflicted on me, I will definitely return it double. Return it 10 times. Return it 20 times. At the same time, Father Stella, who was reciting scriptures in the room, suddenly shook his head, and then flicked his finger, and a small golden light shot out of the window. Mayor Lotta, who was running away, suddenly felt a pain in his calf, and fell down. The communication device crystal in his hand rolled out at once. Mayor Lotta was shocked, and when he was about to get up to pick it up, he heard a crack. He saw a burly figure appear in front of him without him knowing. The communication device crystal had broken under the feet of this burly figure. Wasco. Oh? Did I step on something? Looking at the frighteningly strong old man in front of him, the corner of Mayor Lotta's mouth twitched a few times, and then he asked faintly, You? How heavy are you? Chapter 1593. Wasco probably also felt that he seemed to have stepped on something, so he raised his leg to take a look. My Lotta was shocked. Although the communication crystal was broken, even the fragments were not ordinary. He was afraid that Wasco, a visitor from the Holy Church, would see some clues. What's this? In fact, it seemed that he was overthinking. After Wasco raised his leg to take a look, he directly swept the crystal fragments to the courtyard next to the corridor. My Lotta's expression froze again, and he was speechless. Wasco said quite casually at this time, Clean it up. Okay. My Lotta opened his mouth, but in the end, he still responded in a daze. After that, Wasco strode into the room where Father Stella was reciting scriptures, ignoring my Lotta. My Lotta could only silently pick up the crystal fragments in the courtyard. It could not be glued back, and even if it could be glued back, it could not be used again. Damn it, damn it! My Lotta cursed fiercely, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. For you, 100 times. He could only say that. Now, he was in danger of being locked up by the human police at any moment. How could he deal with a knight of the Holy Church? In short, my Lotta left in a daze. In front of the room, Wasco stopped, because Father Stella was standing in front of the door at this time, shaking his head slightly, as if looking at the strong old man in front of him with a trace of dissatisfaction. Still say that he's not your student, why do you care so much? Wasco said indifferently. I have the responsibility to give the lost lambs a bright path. Father Stella said as he drew a cross in front of his chest. There are a lot of lost lambs in the Holy Capital, and there are even lambs in the rebellious period in the Godly Might prison. Why don't I see you go back and reform them with your iron fist? Father Stella glared and said, Every day, you go to work at 7 in the morning and leave at 10 in the evening. 7 days a week, all year round, whoever wants to go can go. That's why you're here. Wasco's eyes widened in disbelief. Of course, this was not the reason why Father Stella did not go back, but the work system of the Godly Might prison seemed to be really like this. After thinking about it carefully, Wasco could not find anything to refute. After the two of them stared at each other for a while, Father Stella returned to the room and continued to preach. Wasco leaned against the door, thinking about something. Although the believers in the house were curious about the identity of the burly old man at the door, Father Stella was preaching, which required absolute silence. Therefore, the believers could only temporarily hide their doubts in their hearts. Then, there was communication. But Mr. Smith left directly after the priest finished his sermon. He, who was in a better mood, thought about his wife in the hospital, so he resigned directly. Therefore, another believer continued. They spoke out their troubles, unspeakable secrets, or some kind of past trauma one by one. It was the turn of a strange young man. They found that there was a young face in this room that they had never seen before. Black hair, black eyes, seemed to be from the east. Most of the residents of the town knew the background, so they judged that this strange young man might be a student of the school, or a new resident who had just lived here for a while. "Sir, are you a believer?" Father Stella asked with a smile. "No." The strange young man said politely, "I'm just passing by, so I came in to take a look. If I'm not a believer, can I join?" "I don't know, because no one stopped me from coming in." The priest chuckled and said, "We welcome anyone to come. Welcome, new guest. You can talk about your troubles here, don't care about other people's eyes, and don't be shy about the things in your heart that are difficult to talk about, because we will all help you." "I don't have any troubles for now." The young man shook his head and said, "Really, I'm just interested in this place, so I came in to listen and feel." The believers were not angry, and Father Stella was even more so. He just smiled and nodded. "I hope you won't be troubled by troubles in the future. I give you my blessing, young man." Of course, it was just a verbal blessing. If it was really another kind of blessing, Wasco would probably not be able to take it, and come up and drag Father Stella away directly. Holy power could not be displayed in front of ordinary people, unless they were all believers. Although it was not to the point of rejection, Wasco was not interested in people who did not have faith in their hearts. "Young man, how do you feel? If you feel good, you can consider joining the church. I'll be your referees." An uncle in the room laughed and said, "This is a small place, not like the big cities with so many rules. It's very simple, you just have to nod." Generally speaking, they were overzealous. I don't need this for now." The young man shook his head slightly and said, "Thank you for your kindness, sir." Since he had expressed his intention to refuse twice in a row, naturally, no one would force this unfamiliar young man. After all, the church was not a tyrannical organization that forced people to join. However, Father Stella could not help but feel a little puzzled at this moment. This unfamiliar young man, he seemed to have just noticed him, but this gathering had been going on for a while. Since Mr. Smith began to talk about the pain in his heart, why did he only notice this young man now? Logically speaking, among the faces of the Westerners, the face of the Orientals was so unique. He should have noticed him. While he was puzzled, a man in the room in his 30s suddenly stood up and interrupted the conversation between Father Stella and this unfamiliar young man. "Oh, what's the matter, Ole?" Father Stella was not unhappy, but he was curious. The man named Ole lowered his head and did not speak. His appearance was a little strange, which immediately attracted the attention of everyone. Ole, seeing that the man still had his head lowered and did not speak, Father Stella could only take a step forward, and Ole suddenly raised his head at this moment. "Are you sleepy?" Before he finished speaking, the man named Ole rushed forward and grabbed Father Stella's neck with both hands. He even grabbed Father Stella's neck easily. This sudden turn of events shocked all the believers in the room. Seeing this, Wasco, who was outside the door, almost did not hesitate, and immediately strode in an instant. His muscular arm grabbed the back of Ole's collar and lifted him up easily. However, Ole still held Father Stella's neck tightly. Wasco used force to break Ole's finger, and with a crack, Ole's finger was easily bent. Something strange happened. Ole, who had a finger broken, did not seem to feel any pain at this moment. Wasco snorted coldly and used force with both hands again. This time, he directly tore Ole apart violently. "Wasco!" Father Stella suddenly shouted at this moment. Wasco, who was about to hit Ole, heard this and frowned. In the end, he only pushed Ole away. At the same time, he understood what Father Stella was reminding him of. In the room, it was not only Ole, but the rest of the believers were also acting strangely. They became expressionless, but their gazes occasionally revealed a terrifying aggressiveness. "Are you okay? What happened to them? Are they under witchcraft?" Wasco retreated to Father Stella's side and asked directly. The priest, who was choked by Ole, did not do anything. At this moment, he only frowned and said, "If someone here used witchcraft and I didn't know, you still have the nerve to ask me to go back. Looks like it's a secret medicine." Secret medicine? Wasco was startled and immediately paid attention. There seemed to be a faint fragrance in the air. It was the smell of flowers, which could easily be ignored, but Wasco remembered that there were no flowers in the church at all. Stella planted vegetables in the courtyard. "Did you offend someone?" Wasco asked directly. Father Stella said unhappily, "Who else can I offend? All these years, I only offended the Pope, didn't I? But at least I managed to get away." Wasco, who had never seen Father Stella could be so naughty, shook his head. He directly attacked, one by one, and knocked down the believers who had lost their minds to the ground one by one. He had a sense of propriety, and only knocked them out. Father Stella naturally did not stop him, but he had a vague feeling in his heart, as if he had forgotten something. He carefully looked at the believers who had been knocked to the ground by Wasco, but he couldn't find anything that made him suspicious. But he didn't have time to think about it carefully. At this moment, there was a commotion outside the room. The believers who were participating in various activities suddenly went berserk. Not only did they madly destroy the things in the church, they even wrestled with each other. Wasco pushed all the way out of the inner hall, and finally stopped in front of a crazy pregnant woman. He helplessly caught her and tied her up. It was only when he and Father Stella came to the open space outside the church that they both showed a serious expression. They saw that on the roof of the church, a woman wearing a strange armor and a black inverted V-shaped mask was standing there. Most of this strange armor was black, but there was an orange-red glow in the textures. An ominous feeling lingered in the hearts of Priest, Stryker, and Vasco. "Who are you? Why did you attack the church?" Wasco snorted coldly. As one of the few senior paladins of the Holy Church, he was never afraid when facing most of the inhumans in the world. The mysterious woman on the roof did not speak. She suddenly stretched out her hand and opened her palm. From the woman's palm, there was a pendant. Wasco and Father Stella's expression changed slightly. Seeing the pendant the woman took out, Wasco's voice was even lower. "The holy relic of the Pecoris Monastery? You are a member of the Black Order?" The woman only let out a laugh. At the same time, the entire church was shrouded in darkness. It seemed to be the power of the holy relic of the Pecoris Monastery. But a holy relic would naturally not produce such a strange dark power. Therefore, the moment the darkness shrouded the church, Father Stella thought of something. You actually reversed the holy relic? One is the former warden of the Godly Might prison of the Holy Church, and the other is one of the most senior paladins. I really want to see if the two of you are as powerful as the rumors say. The mysterious woman finally spoke. It was a rather sharp and stiff voice, obviously a voice that had been specially modified. Remnant of cultivation. It saves me the trouble of searching everywhere. Wasco sneered. Today, I will purify you. He was obviously one of the most senior paladins. His holy power was majestic. At this moment, the holy power burst out, as if it was going to break the darkness in front of him. But in just a moment, the holy power burst out by Wasco suddenly disappeared. The light dimmed. Wasco, don't use holy power. Father Stella hurriedly reminded at this time. The holy relic has been reversed, now it is releasing the power of corruption. For those who practice holy power, the power of corruption is equivalent to the most terrifying poison. The more holy power you release, the faster you will be eroded and corrupted. Wasco snorted softly, jumped up directly, and threw a punch at the mysterious woman. He did not use any holy power, but only his tempered body. Even so, this punch still smashed a big hole in the roof of the church. The cross on the roof collapsed directly, and the mysterious woman who easily dodged the attack now directly grabbed at Father Stella. But at the moment this mysterious woman was about to grab Father Stella, this priest who could not hide his belly, and was even a little bald, suddenly burst out with a terrifying holy light brilliance. Then, his fist was wrapped in dazzling brilliance, and directly blasted out. The mysterious woman hurriedly crossed her hands to block, but after taking Father Stella's punch head-on, she flew backward and crashed directly into the church. With one crash, the walls of the church collapsed directly. Father Stella immediately followed up with another attack. He chased after this mysterious woman and hit her with every punch. Even a battle maniac like Wasco could not help but feel heartache for this mysterious woman when he saw this. Stella's punches were really painful. Stella the Invincible Iron Fist. This was a fierce man who suppressed the criminals of the entire Godly Might prison for half a century. However, Wasco suddenly thought of a problem. "You old bastard! Didn't you say that holy power can't be used?" "Humph! Trash Wasco! My holy power is cultivated by myself, yours is borrowed, how can it be compared?" Father Stella snorted coldly at this time. "It's better to rely on yourself than on God. Warden Stella, let me have a taste of your so-called iron fist." A black brilliance broke through the church. It was the mysterious woman. The difference was, at this time, there was a pair of wings condensed by black light behind her. Just like the legendary fallen angel. Chapter 1594. At this moment, Wasco quickly returned to Father Stella's side and confronted the mysterious woman in the air. Father Stella said that it was best not to use the holy power, but he did not believe it. He released a little of the holy power outside his body, but it was invaded by something cold in an instant. He was so shocked that he quickly withdrew the holy power, reversing the holy relic, the power of corruption. If the black cultivators really mastered these forbidden powers, they might really bring a terrible disaster to the Holy Church in the future. "You want to have a taste of my iron fist?" Unexpectedly, Father Stella shook his head at this time. "I'm not going to fight with you." The mysterious woman was suddenly curious. "Why, the great iron fist Stella is still afraid?" Father Stella stared and said, "Little friend, I'm afraid my fist will hurt you. Although you have extraordinary abilities, you're still just an ordinary person. The armor on your body should be the new masterpiece of the Black Order, right? If it exceeds the limit, you'll die." Wasco opened his mouth and looked at Father Stella with a helpless face. As expected, this old act tough king is here. "Then please, Warden Stella, check my body carefully to see if it's so fragile." The mysterious woman suddenly swooped down. Wasco, bring out the believers of the church, don't let them be hurt by the wind of my fist." Father Stella shouted at this time, and then immediately raised his fist to the sky. One dived down, the other kicked up, the two of them were 7 or 8 meters above the ground, and their fists collided instantly. Wasco cursed Stella under his breath and went straight into the church. "What a joke!" Wasco cursed Stella under his breath and went straight into the church. These believers were probably used by the mysterious woman of the Black Order to create chaos, or to distract their attention. If they were to stand in the middle of the battle, and the mysterious woman suddenly attacked an innocent believer, it would cause a lot of trouble for them. Boom, 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 boom. Just as Wasco was continuously rescuing those believers who had lost their minds, Father Stella and the mysterious woman had already exchanged dozens of blows. The thunderous sound reverberated throughout the entire church, deafening to the ears. "Father, although you are still running the church, we know that you have left the Holy Church. Why not join us? You no longer have any faith in your heart. Why don't you overthrow that high and mighty hypocrite? No, you black cultivators can't beat the Holy Church. You have no future. Only fools would go, Father Stella said as he rushed over. His voice was so loud that Wasco, who was in the middle of saving people, almost fell to the ground. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. When he was in the same batch as Stella, they should have been the most outstanding holy knights of the Holy Cathedral. However, it was because Stella's mouth could ruin the reputation of the Holy Church that he was thrown into the Godly Might prison. The mysterious woman was not talking at this time. She concentrated on dealing with Father Stella's fists. She was secretly shocked. Under the fallen force field of the reversed holy relic, Father Stella's holy power was not affected. Instead, it became stronger and stronger. It was even showing signs of breaking through the fallen force field. Her mind was racing, but at this moment, the curtain of darkness that shrouded the entire church was suddenly broken by something from the outside. Like a punctured balloon, the curtain of darkness disappeared in an instant. The mysterious woman was shocked. This curtain of darkness was not broken by Father Stella, but by an external force. In this town, other than Father Stella and Wasco, was there another inhuman powerhouse? At this time, the mysterious woman suddenly jumped back and broke away from the battle with Father Stella. She quickly looked around but did not see any clues. She whispered, "It's almost time for debugging." Thinking of this, she smiled slightly and looked at Father Stella, who was ready to give chase. She said in a clear voice, "Father, I will be back again. Please reconsider your invitation." Before she finished speaking, Father Stella, who was still on the ground, disappeared in an instant. In the next moment, an iron fist had appeared in front of the mysterious woman and hit her abdomen armor hard. "Damn it, I knew you guys would do this." Father Stella snorted coldly. "When I was out in the world, I saw a lot of it. You want to leave without paying for the damages to my church? No way." The mysterious woman was knocked to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood, which flowed out from the corner of her mask. The armor on her abdomen was not broken, but her internal organs were obviously injured. However, she endured the pain in her internal organs and directly took out the holy relic of reversal, wanting to activate the fallen force field again. However, at this time, a burly figure appeared in front of her. "Wasco. Really? Thank you for your care just now, little girl from the religious order." The fallen force field had not been activated, so Wasco was no longer attacked by the fallen power. At this time, the power of the holy power in his body was not much weaker than Father Stella's. Boom! A punch landed. At this moment, the courtyard of the church suddenly erupted like a volcano, spraying more than 10 meters high, and the ground shook violently. Not long after, the dust dispersed a little, and Father Stella was covered in dust. His head and face were gray, and his expression was ugly. Wasco stood in front of a huge pit, frowning. In the pit, the mysterious woman's body was obviously not in it. The armor on the woman from the Black Order could even block his fist, so naturally, it would not be broken by Wasco's fist. After all, Father Wasco's strength was something that Father Stella knew very well. "Wasco, I seriously suspect that you are a traitor sent by the Black Order," Father Stella scolded. "Beating someone up and making such a big noise, do you understand that there is Yen Wushang? This is clearly to create an opportunity for the enemy to escape. Tell me, how much money did you take from the Black Order? If it weren't for the fact that we're in the same batch, I'd definitely stuff Tom in from behind you, you old bastard." Vasco glared at him and pulled up his sleeves, as though he was about to fight with his clothes. Father Stella was stunned for a moment, then said in shock, "Oh no! Tom Cruise! Where is my Tom Cruise?" He did not pay attention to Wasco, and hurriedly went to look for his gold layer Tom Cruise in the dilapidated church. Wasco looked helpless, and only looked around in confusion. Who was the one who broke the fallen force field at the beginning? But there was no other inhuman aura at the scene. Old bastard, I will patrol around. Here at the church, I will send someone to clean up the mess. As Wasco said, he took out his phone and called the few reserve paladins who came with him this time, and then he walked out of the church and looked around the church. As soon as Wasco left, the group of believers who were knocked unconscious by Wasco and thrown into a corner were piled up in a pile. A bald man suddenly opened his eyes and looked at my Lada. At this time, on his shiny forehead, there were obviously fine beads of sweat. He was shocked by Father Stella's attack. Damn it, this priest's strength is actually... My Lada could not help but compare in his heart. If he had not had his strength sealed, it would have been difficult for him to take a punch from the priest. No matter if it was Wasco, the mysterious woman, or Father Stella and the old mage in the small town, why were there so many strong people hidden in this small town? When did the power of inhuman in the modern world become so strong? If not, he would have thought that this was an inhuman domain. As he thought about it, my Lada felt as if something was scratching him. He had been lying in the crowd and did not dare to move, afraid that he would be discovered. Throughout the whole process, he did not faint. My Lada carefully moved his head, adjusted the angle of his vision, and finally found out what was scratching the cat raised by his Stella identity. Didn't Father Stella say that he was going to look for Tom Cruise? Why did this stupid cat come here? Hiss, hiss, hiss. My Lada planned to chase Tom Cruise away. However, Tom Cruise did not care at all. He directly rode on my Lada's face, and then gently tiptoed with his hind legs. A small chrysanthemum slowly wriggled and bloomed in front of my Lada's eyes. My Lada's eyes widened, and he held his breath. He was stunned. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise. Father Stella was searching in the backyard of the church. He was quite serious, and even though there was someone standing in the backyard, he did not seem to care. The person standing in the backyard was Teacher Poulin. Until Teacher Poulin could not help but cough twice, Father Stella finally reacted. "Oh, thank you for just now. I just felt that there was something here." Teacher Poulin shook his head. "You know, my hands are a little special." Father Stella smiled and said, "That is the fallen force field created by the reverse holy relic, and your hands can make it die. This is probably not as simple as being special." Teacher Poulin glanced at the priest, and suddenly felt that Father Stella's gray head and gray face was a little funny, so he smiled and said, "Who is the person who is causing trouble for you?" Father Stella said rather casually, "Probably the rival of the boss of the place where I used to work, but he has never been a threat. You know, under normal circumstances, people always like to vent their anger on the small ones when they can't beat them." Teacher Poulin laughed and said, "This small one is not easy to deal with." Father Stella said, "Have you seen my Tom Cruise?" Teacher Poulin said, "It seems that there is no problem here. Then I won't disturb you. By the way, I have a friend here today. Forget it, if he doesn't want you to remember, you probably won't remember." "Friend?" Father Stella frowned. Teacher Poulin's words made him look pensive. In fact, it was very difficult for him to define his relationship with Teacher Poulin. Naturally, they weren't enemies, but they couldn't be considered friends either. He came to this small town first to run the church, and then Teacher Poulin came here half a year ago. He was like a wandering ghost, aimless. Before leaving, Teacher Poulin suddenly said, "If Myalda has caused you any trouble, let him leave. I won't find it troublesome. It's okay, my waist is not good recently. This big guy is quite diligent, but he eats a little too much. If you don't mind, can you pay for his food?" Teacher Poulin had already slipped away. The priest continued to look for his Tom Cruise. At this time, a furious voice came from the front yard. It was Myalda's voice. "Lowly beast, how dare you humiliate me, the great bloodline? I'm going to kill you." Father Stella sighed and patted his shoulder. "How worrisome. Hey, Myalda, you have to treat small animals with love, okay?" In the ruined church, a bald man was chasing a fat Jean Jian. Father Stella shook his head and walked into the ruins. He silently picked up the cross that was knocked down when they fought. The holy relic has been reversed. The holy light can no longer shine here. The priest lowered his head and muttered to himself. A figure was staggering in the forest. She relied on the trees in the forest for support to be able to walk here. It was the mysterious woman who attacked the church and Father Stella. Thinking back to the battle just now, she knew that she was careless. She underestimated Father Stella's holy power. At the same time, the unknown person who broke the fallen energy field was even more unexpected. Could it be the clown knight from the knight's mechanism? But soon, she denied this conjecture. Although the 12 knights of the knight's mechanism were powerful, it was impossible for them to break the fallen energy field so easily. Unless it was the most evil and powerful knight in the history of Britain. But according to the information, the knight who escaped from prison should not be in the town now. At this moment she suddenly stopped. On one hand, it was because Father Stella's fist, even through the armor, still caused her internal organs to rupture. On the other hand, it was the manner in front of her that attracted her attention. She had some impression of this manner. In her impression, this manor should have been abandoned. But looking at it now, it was obvious that someone was living in this manor. But, after all, she had left the town for a period of time. During this period of time, it was reasonable to say that someone had lived here. She moved her body with difficulty. What she needed most now was a place to temporarily heal and hide. She could not guarantee that Father Stella would not come after her after she escaped from the church. "He's not home." The woman came to the entrance of the manor. She saw that the iron door at the entrance of the manor was only ajar, but there was obviously no sound coming from inside. It was so quiet that it was a little strange. After thinking for a few seconds, the woman decided to sneak in. This manor was not big, but it was not small either. It was a good place to hide. "Excuse me, is there anything I can help you with?" A soft voice suddenly came from behind her. This made her hair stand on end. She did not hear any approaching sound, but the voice suddenly appeared. She quickly turned around. What she saw was a black-haired young man carrying 2 bags. He looked like he just came back from shopping. "This is your home?" The woman frowned. The black-haired young man nodded and smiled. "Yes, I just moved here a few weeks ago." "It's like this." The woman nodded. Her pale face suddenly bloomed with a smile. She slowly approached. "There is one thing." In a split second, she lifted up her skirt and quickly took out something from under her skirt. The next moment, the woman held a silver pistol and went behind the black-haired young man. The muzzle of the gun was pressed against the young man's back. "Tonight, let me stay here, okay? I will repay you well." As she said, the woman pushed forward with the gun. Chapter 1595. "You better not play any tricks." The woman's voice was low as she pushed Luochu forward. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I'm just resting in your manor for a while." She probably didn't use such a forceful method. "Are you hurt?" Boss Luo asked calmly, even though he already knew the answer. "I told you not to play any tricks. Take out your phone." The woman pushed Luochu's back with the silver pistol in her hand. "Right now." "Here." Boss Luo took out his phone naturally. Without saying a word, the woman snatched the phone and stuffed it into her belt. In front of the door, Boss Luo put his hand into his pants pocket. She reacted quickly and grabbed Luochu's wrist, saying coldly, "What are you doing? Open the door, you need a key." Luochu opened his palm and took out a key from the bag. The woman didn't say anything, but her vigilance didn't diminish. However, just the amount of exercise along the way had already triggered the injuries in her body. A fishy sweetness rushed straight to her throat. She couldn't stop it even if she closed her mouth. She couldn't even cover it with her hands. Blood flowed freely from her lips and seeped through her fingers. Her vision became extremely blurry at this moment. Her whole body fell towards the black-haired young man in front of her. The moment she fell, she could only say weakly, "Don't call a doctor." Boss Luo took a step back at this moment. The woman didn't succeed in falling on him. She just slowly landed on the ground, as if there was something holding her, and then gently put her down. "Master, you're back." The moment the woman fell on the ground, the door in front of Boss Luo opened. The temporary maid, Eve, appeared in front of him. Eve glanced at the woman who was vomiting blood on the ground and said expressionlessly, "Intruder?" Boss Luo didn't answer directly. Instead, he suddenly asked, "Eve, do you know first aid, the normal kind?" Eve nodded and said, "I can perform some simple surgery. If it's not enough, I can learn immediately. Is there a need, master?" "It's up to you." Boss Luo smiled and walked around the woman into the house. "I'll cook for myself tonight." Eve watched Boss Luo leave before looking down at the woman on the ground. Eve didn't show any impatience. She just muttered to herself, "Master Yu Yi said that any woman who enters the manor must be recorded. Scan is successful. Execute priority order, begin rescue." So, Eve bent down and picked her up. The few holy knights that Vasco had brought back to clean up the mess had indeed arrived at Father Striker's church. The Holy Church had always been fighting against the dark creatures in the human society in Eurasia. This had been going on for thousands of years. Therefore, the Holy Church even had a complete and mature plan to deal with special event. The police came later and found that the church was destroyed because of the explosion of the boiler in the church. As for the believers who fainted, it was because they inhaled a large amount of exhaust gas after the explosion. Oh my God, how could such a reason be so easily denied? God knows why. The police seemed to be possessed and easily believed this reason. A girl among the reserve paladins got into the police car and went to the police station to record a statement. As for when such a female trainee came to the church, who knew? Speaking of which, even if she was just a trainee, she could be a female. Shouldn't all priests be men? If it was a female trainee, wouldn't she be a nun? Who knew? The police left soon after they arrived. The remaining 3 reserve paladins began to deal with the believers who woke up one after another. Compared to the police's investigation, this group of believers was a huge project. "Can't fake, are we violating the 9th commandment?" A reserve paladin suddenly asked at this time. "We are protecting our believers. We are doing a good deed." Another holy knight who had a firm belief in the holy light answered immediately. "That's right, you are indeed fake and dishonest. The door of heaven will not open for you." Father Stella suddenly said this from the side. At the same time, he opened the bottle of happy water with his teeth and gulped it down. What a unique priest! The reserve paladins thought to themselves. If it wasn't for Sir Wasco's order to not have any conflict with him. Was this guy really the former warden of the Godly Might prison, the man who was in charge of imprisonment and punishment for God, and was called the Iron Fist of Light 4 decades? It's the Iron Fist of Invincibility. The priest who had finished a bottle of happy water at this time said disdainfully, adding the word light is too low class. "Hold it in, don't be angry, hold it in." The reserve paladins began to recite the self-morality and self-cultivation of the paladins in their hearts. Ignoring the priest who moved a beach chair and laid down in the yard to supervise the work, the 3 reserve paladins began to quietly deal with the rest of the matter. Not long after, Wasco came back from outside. It seemed to be fruitless. Wasco went straight to Father Stella's side and sat directly on the ground, next to the beach chair. Then, he snatched the cornflakes from Father Stella's hand, grabbed a handful and chewed. "The people of the Black Order will not attack you for no reason." "How do you know they're here to attack me?" Father Striker glared at him and snatched the cornflakes. "Then why didn't they attack the Holy Church? Why did they choose to come to you at this time?" Wasco said in a bad mood. The priest said matter-of-factly, "Of course it's because they can't beat the Holy Church, that's why they picked an old and weak soldier like me to bully. Don't think that I look good now, my internal injuries are actually very serious. I can't do heavy work in a short period of time. These little guys you brought look pretty hard-working. Can you borrow them for a few days? These are the students of the Paladin Reserve Camp. They are not under my control. If you have the ability, you can directly ask the camp commander of the reserve camp for them. Wasco snorted coldly and said, or you can go back to the Godly Might prison and ask for help. Anyway, the group of enforcers there only listened to your orders. For so many years, there have been a few wardens, but they have all disobeyed in public but opposed in private. The Pope was so angry that he wanted to disband them several times. That old man is still not dead from anger. It's a miracle. Father Stella sat up exaggeratedly with a look of disbelief on his face. Wasco resisted the urge to go up and beat him up on the spot. He suddenly lowered his head and sighed. It's about time. Father Stella opened his mouth but remained silent. After a while, he sighed and said, if the Pope really wants to disband the enforcers, remember to remind him to pay severance. Wasco, who thought that Stella would say something comforting, felt that he had underestimated the extent of the other party's viciousness. He could only helplessly say, now it's confirmed that the holy relic that was taken away from the monastery has been reversed in the hands of the Black Order and their new armor. We don't know how many dangerous people the religious order is hiding in this town. I have already asked the Holy Church for help. In a day or two people will come over. And then, Father Stella blinked. Wasco said indifferently, their target is obviously you. We can't let anything happen to you, so for the next few days, I and the other reserve camp students will stay here. Pay up. Father Stella stared at Wasco and said in a tone that left no room for negotiation, and food expenses. You are definitely the biggest heretic in this world. Father Stella could not help but sigh and said faintly, you don't know, cat food is very expensive. Tom has been with me for a long time, and he can't eat his fill. Look, in the past few months Brother Tom has almost lost 2 pounds. Wasco suddenly stood up, and the veins on his forehead swelled. The 3 reserve paladins' hearts tightened at this time. They all focused and did not dare to make a sound. But in their hearts they were all thinking of the same thing. Beat him up, Lord Wasco. Beat this shameless fat old man to death. Come over here. Pay up. Unexpectedly, Wasco said angrily at this time, and then walked in angrily. The 3 reserve paladins were all stunned at this time, and then they opened their mouths in disbelief. Damn. Ruthless. At this time, Muffin and Wickedall were wondering if there was really an enemy following them, even though Lord Dagonet, one of the 12 paladins, looked so certain. But you can't just come into the restaurant and flirt with the female student here, right? Dagonet, who did not disguise himself as a clown, was a handsome man. In just one morning, he successfully exchanged numbers with the female student. Muffin and Wickedall were not envious, absolutely not. They were both virtuous knights, so they really would not be envious. Seeing Dagonet come back with a smile, Muffin and Wickedall could not sit still. They hurriedly came up and asked, Lord Dagonet, what are we? Dagonet sat down casually, and then took out his phone. Let's watch something first. The 2 looked at each other in confusion, and then looked at Dagonet's phone. The phone began to play a video. Muffin's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt, and then said, this seems to be our church here? If I remember correctly, the priest's name was Stella? Lord Dagonet, what is this? It's a drone. Mr. Clown smiled lazily. It's the year 9102. Who doesn't use high-tech to get information? The night organization did not allocate so much funds to this place. Shoo, there's a situation. Wickedall's expression became tense. Someone attacked the church. Who is this person? No, we have to go there immediately. There's an inhuman, causing trouble here. Mr. Clown pressed the 2 down. We don't have to go there. Why? The 2 asked in unison. Mr. Clown shrugged and smiled with squinted eyes. Because this happened 2 hours ago. The attack started when we were having breakfast. Lord Dagonet, how can this work? The two were shocked. Mr. Clown played with the poker cards on the table and said, "Why not? At least now we know who they are, right?" At this moment, when the phone fast-forwarded to the scene where the curtain of darkness was broken, Father Stella, the mysterious woman, and Wasco all appeared clearly on the screen. "Then what's the program tonight?" Dagonet asked with a smile. "I love traveling at public expense. I can even get reimbursed." If it weren't for the frightening cold light flashing in Dagonet's eyes, they would have believed him. "I'll arrange it right away." Muffin suddenly stood up. "Wickedall, you stay here and accompany Lord Dagonet." With that, Muffin put on her windbreaker, lowered her head, and hurried out of the restaurant. Dagonet ignored her and just took back the phone, playing the content on the screen again. "There's another one." Dagonet watched the curtain of darkness being broken and suddenly whispered to himself, "This is interesting." The woman suddenly opened her eyes. She found that she was lying on a very comfortable big bed. She got up, but the sharp pain almost made her twitch. It took a lot of willpower not to cry out in pain. At this moment, her upper body was wrapped in bandages. She lifted the quilt and saw that only her upper body was wrapped in bandages. It seemed that she had been operated on. She could feel that although her internal organs were still in pain, they seemed to have been treated. The woman was startled for a moment, but she saw that her clothes were not gone, just folded and placed on the bedside cabinet. Her silver pistol was even on the clothes. The woman couldn't help but frown. At this moment, the door of the room slowly opened. Without saying a word, the woman reluctantly opened the cup and covered her body with one hand. Then she grabbed the pistol next to her, half squatted on the floor, and pointed the gun at the door. The person who came in was a beautiful woman wearing a maid's uniform. She had a cold expression on her face, and it was Eve. She was a perfect woman. As a woman, she had to admit it even though she was in such a strange environment. "Please don't get out of bed. You're not suitable for strenuous exercise in your current condition," Eve said expressionlessly. I said, "Don't call a doctor for me." The woman frowned. "How long have I been in a coma?" "It's been 4 hours and 39 minutes since you were in a coma," Eve answered directly. "Besides, I'm the one who treated you, not a doctor." "You?" The woman opened her mouth slightly. "Are you kidding me?" Putting aside the fact that this manor didn't look like a hospital at all, the maid in front of him was actually able to complete an operation on him in just over 4 hours? Her injuries were ruptured internal organs. Gritting her teeth, the woman subconsciously reached out to touch her neck. She found that an important thing on her neck had been lost. "Where's my necklace?" "I didn't see a necklace on you." Eve shook her head. The woman sneered, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. At this moment, she pulled the trigger of the pistol without saying a word. The sound of gunfire suddenly rang in the room. Bang! Then, a scene that made her pupils contract appeared. The bullet had been shot, but the next moment, it was caught by the maid's fingers. The woman could clearly see the bullet between the maid's fingers. God knows how the maid caught the bullet with her fingers. This was not an ordinary bullet.